Chapter 466. The function of the third level of the training pagoda was that the spiritual energy that burst out from the pagoda would spread out. The spiritual energy that was absorbed would also be expelled. The cycle would repeat and the spiritual energy would be refined. Jun Changxiao's idea of fighting with the enemy outside and absorbing spiritual energy from the pagoda was completely unrealistic. Alright. After being splashed with cold water by the system, he shrugged and began to squander his spiritual energy. Shwa! 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 Bang! 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 After exhausting all his spiritual energy for the second time, the area where Jun Changxiao was at was filled with rich spiritual energy. The momentum was so great that it made people gasp in amazement. With 2 spirit cores, he had a lot of spiritual energy. Huff, huff. He activated his mental cultivation method again and spread it out. The spiritual energy that collided with the heaven and earth attribute of the third level returned to his body. After 2 consecutive times, Jun Changxiao realized that the intensity of his spiritual energy had increased a little compared to before. Although it was not obvious, if he continued to cultivate, regardless of whether it was spiritual energy or the use of it, there would definitely be great improvements. In the path of martial arts, the physical body was the foundation. The spiritual energy in the spirit core was what really determined one's strength. Even the simplest normal attack was a competition of spiritual energy, not to mention the use of various martial arts. Continue. Jun Changxiao began to cultivate seriously. Bang, bang, bang. Huff, huff, huff. A few hours later, Sect leader Jun collapsed on the ground, exhausted. Although spiritual energy could be released and absorbed in a cycle, the physical body could not keep up. Therefore, even a sword and martial arts king like him would be exhausted. The third level is lit up. Could it be that someone went in? Let's go in and take a look. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei went to the third level first. When they saw Jun Changxiao lying inside, they realized something. So Sect leader is cultivating. What's the third level training for? It doesn't seem to be anything special. The disciples who could already adapt to the second level gathered on the third level. Because they did not understand the function, they stood there and looked at each other. After a short rest, Jun Changxiao told them the function and they began to attack non-stop. The sad thing was, after some people played a few times, their physical strength was greatly depleted. In the end, they couldn't hold on any longer and exploded with a bang. Their souls also returned to their bodies, and then their bodies were sent out while twitching. The third level also had a punishment system. Excessive consumption would result in side effects. As a result, the disciples became more cautious. After confirming their own limits, they would train for a certain amount of time every day. There were records on the third level as well. Because only disciples could be counted. Even if Sect leader Jun held on for a few hours, his name would still not be on the list. Yi Xingchen has become the record holder for the first level of the Tower of Experience in 3 hours. A heavy voice sounded. After a few days of training, Night Emperor relied on his immense psionic energy and endurance to become the first record holder. On the first level of gravity training, Xiao Ziji was the first to take it, and then Lu Qianqian surpassed him. Until now, he was still in the lead. On the second level of agility training, Su Xiaoma was more talented in this area, so he was still on the list. On the third level of psionic energy training, Night Emperor, who cultivated the Taishan Sutra and I Jing Jing, was also on the list. It was only natural that he would occupy the list. It could be said that among all the disciples, Yi Xingchen's psionic energy was the densest and most powerful. And all of this originated from the Taishan Sutra. Bang! In the training room, Jun Changxiao punched the testing machine, and a shockwave surged. It could be said that it was very powerful. The strength displayed was 3 million Jin. Tisk, tisk. The system exclaimed, on the falling star continent, even a first-rank martial king only has a strength of 5 million Jin. The host has a strength of 500,000 Jin. This is quite powerful. Jun Changshao grinned and said, "So, I'm already above the first-rank Martial King level?" "No." The system said, "The host is still a first-rank Martial King. The reason why your strength is so strong is because of the sword and Martial Kings." "I see." Jun Changshao punched a few more times. He felt that after these few days of training on the third level of the training tower, he had become more adept at using psionic energy. The system said, "When you become more adept at using psionic energy, the power of your martial skills will also increase. It is recommended that the host not only cultivate but also train. You can't delay either." "Understood." Jun Changshao continued to cultivate. He cultivated in the spirit gathering formation in the morning, and spent the afternoon on the third level of the training tower. The Iron Bone disciples were also cultivating seriously. Many of them who had just entered the martial master level also broke through one after another. Their level was higher and their strength was stronger day by day. And the ones who benefited the most were Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and other inner disciples who were stuck at the peak of martial master level. This was because after cultivating for a few days, they had entered Wuzong. The condition to enter Wuzong was to have a deeper understanding of martial arts. This understanding was to comprehend psionic energy and undergo a transformation in a certain sense. Training on the third level of the training tower was equivalent to transforming psionic energy, so it also unknowingly increased the speed of their comprehension and breakthrough. After realizing this, Jun Changshao said happily, "When the disciples reach the peak of martial master level, won't it be easier for them to break through on the third level of the training tower?" "It's not that troublesome." The system said, "As long as the martial master level disciples train step by step, it will be easy for them to break through Wuzong when they reach the peak of martial master level." Jun Changshao was overjoyed. With the Cyclone Pill, Martial Master Pill, and now the third level of the training tower, the entire system of cultivation was guaranteed to send them to Wuzong. With the breakthrough of Li Qingyang and the others, the number of Iron Bone Wuzong disciples had also increased. Because they were all at the peak level, their combat strength was no less than that of a 6th or 7th grade Wuzong. The sect leader was the Sword and Martial King, and the disciples were all at the peak level of Wuzong. With the current strength of the Iron Bone School, other than the fact that they had fewer disciples, they were completely comparable to a 5th-rate sect. If they went to the Holy Springs sect, not to mention winning over 70 disciples, even if they went to challenge the elders, they would be crushed into a pile of shit. Of course. The disciples had all improved, and so did our elder Jiang. He had finally reached rank 3 Martial King from rank 2 Martial King. It had been a while since he joined the Iron Bone School, but he only reached rank 1. This was a bit slow. However, after Jiang Ye broke through, he was extremely excited. In the past, it took him 2 to 3 years to reach rank 2 from rank 1. Now, not only did he break through to rank 3 in a few months, he also reached the peak level from the high level. This was definitely something that he could not even dream of. Moreover, after experiencing the second and third levels of the training tower, Jiang Ye realized that as long as he continued to train, his strength in all aspects would only increase even more. Therefore, anyone who entered the Iron Bone School and experienced the convenience and speed of cultivation would be addicted to it. There was one exception. That was the last disciple, He Wudi. This person's aptitude was really strong. In 7 days, he had opened 7 meridians, 1 meridian per day. It was simply unbelievable. At this speed, I will be able to open 12 meridians in 5 days. He Wudi thought to himself, after I become a martial disciple, I will leave the Iron Bone School and go out to explore. He was able to become a Saint Lord in a higher plane by relying on all kinds of life and death experiences. Therefore, he did not like to stay in one place and cultivate step by step. Moreover, the Iron Bone School only had 2,000 disciples. In the Falling Star continent, it was only rank 6. How could he condescend to be here? He Wudi's heart was set on the Sea of Stars. Therefore, after opening 12 meridians and becoming a martial disciple, he hurriedly packed his luggage in the middle of the night and resolutely embarked on the journey to the outside world. Standing in front of the mountain gate, Woody looked back at the Iron Bone School and muttered, "Kid, the next time we meet, one will be in heaven and the other on earth." He was heaven. Jun Changshao was earth. Shwa! With a wave of his hand, he strode forward. However, just as he lifted his foot, his body suddenly trembled. His sea of consciousness seemed to explode, and all kinds of memories were instantly erased. He also rolled his eyes and fainted on the spot. Chapter 467. When he accepted Woody as his disciple, sect leader Jun used many tricks to show how a sect leader thirsted for talents. But when he accepted Woody as his disciple, he immediately became incomparably cold and even arranged for Woody to be his last disciple. Why? Because joining the Iron Bone was equivalent to being directly bound. Leave the sect? Leave? Betray? Yes, but first erase all the memories that shouldn't exist. Jun Changshao was a little worried at first that the system might be lying to him. However, when Woody had the intention to leave, the moment he walked out of the sect, his memories were ruthlessly erased, proving that the restriction really existed. This memory not only contained the muscle tendon changing scripture, but also the benefits of the mental cultivation method and the breakthrough of the realm. Woody was unconscious at the door. Not only did he forget many things, his cultivation that had just broken through to martial disciple was also taken back. Once again, he fell to level 0. It could be said that it was tragic. Ding! Disciple Woody has the intention to leave. His memory has been erased. Ding! Sect members, 252750000. Woody's memory was erased, which was equivalent to automatically leaving the sect. One of the members also dropped. Jun Changshao, who was cultivating in the spirit gathering array, heard the notification and shook his head. He just broke through to martial disciple and he's leaving. He knew that he couldn't win people's hearts with tricks. Woody definitely didn't join wholeheartedly and was prepared for him to leave. However, leaving right after breaking through to martial disciple was too impatient. The system said, everyone has their own ambitions. The memories that shouldn't have been there have been erased. The host can let him leave. Even so. Jun Changshao murmured. But such a good seedling. If I let him go, it will be a loss to myself and Iron Bone. So I have to recruit him again. The system was silent. My head hurts. The next day, Woody, who was carried back to the sect, covered his head and opened his eyes. His mind was in chaos and his head was splitting. He panted a little and looked at the unfamiliar environment. He thought to himself, wasn't I surrounded by wolf beasts? The memory was erased for a long time, directly erasing the scene when he first came to the Falling Star continent and was attacked by wolf beasts in the wild. As for what happened after that, he forgot all about it. Creak. The door was pushed open and Jun Changshao walked in. Little brother, I saved you. Little brother. Little brother. The corner of Woody's mouth twitched as he weakly asked, where is this place? This is the Iron Bone Upright Sect. Jun Chang smiled and said, I am the sect leader of this sect. Iron Bone. What a name. What a name. Woody, who had lost his memories, was tricked by sect master Jun, just like Tao Yuan, who had been saved by the sect master. Thinking that he had been saved, Woody decided to stay. Little brother, since you have no parents and no relatives in the Starfall continent, why don't you join my Iron Bone sect? Jun Chang asked with a smile. Join my Iron Bone sect. I'll take you in as my last disciple and provide you with all kinds of resources for free. Iron Sect, Iron. Iron Sect, Tao. Iron Master. Some people said that this was too stupid, right? That was not the case. Woody joined Iron Bone for the second time. He felt that he was new here and did not know much about this world. He joined Iron Bone because he wanted to take the opportunity to familiarize himself with the world. His real thoughts were the same as when he joined Iron Bone for the first time. Once he understood enough, he would definitely leave. Just like that. He would joined Iron Bone again. He practiced I Jing Jing again. He used a period of time to break through to martial disciple, and again, sect leader. The next day, Li Qingyang carried him into the main hall. He broke down and said, "Junior brother, he fainted again. Will he lose his memory and cultivation?" "He will." Jun Changshao said, "It's a kind of illness." The corner of Li Qingyang's mouth twitched, so he cooperated with the sect leader to put on a show. He accepted He Wudi as a disciple again and arranged a residence for him as a new disciple. He then brought him to the cultivation method pavilion for the third time. What a familiar feeling. He Wudi entered the technique pavilion for the third time. He felt a sense of familiarity, but he could not understand it. In the end, he followed Li Qingyang's suggestion and chose I Jing Jing. A few days later. Sect leader. Li Qingyang carried him again and said, "Junior brother, he fell at the mountain gate again. His illness is very serious. Do you want to find a famous doctor to treat him?" "No need." Jun Changshao said, "Just continue to cooperate." "Okay." Li Qingyang was about to send He Wudi to the medicine hall. Jun Changshao stopped him and said, "What martial skills did he choose these few times he went to the technique pavilion?" This person always had the idea of leaving. He always lost his memory and cultivation. Could it be that the martial arts of Iron Bone's sect were not attractive to him? It shouldn't be. Even a martial king like Jiang Xia is extremely excited after practicing all kinds of martial arts. A guy without cultivation should be overjoyed after seeing so many martial skills. Li Qingyang said, "This disciple suggests that junior brother he cultivate I Jing Jing first." "That won't do. It's too little." Jun Changshao said, "Let him choose more martial skills. Let him experience my slash, rupturing fist, splitting mountain palm." "Understood." "Wait, let him see the high-level martial skills, such as Scarlet Sky Raging Flame Slash and 7 Profound Sunglow Break. Let him see them and be shocked." "Yes." He Wudi woke up for the third time. Then, he was tricked by sect leader Jun in the same way. After adding the Iron Bone sect, he was brought to the technique pavilion by Li Qingyang. The plot was exactly the same, but our second senior brother changed his lines and said, "Junior brother, our Iron Bone sect has many martial skills. You can choose and look at them as you wish. Especially the last 2 rows, they are all high-level martial skills." High-level martial skills? A trace of disdain appeared in He Wudi's heart. He only joined the Iron Bone sect temporarily to understand the falling star continent. Naturally, he didn't believe that this sect would have any high-level martial skills. Because Li Qingyang didn't follow the previous routine, He Wudi didn't choose I Jing Jing. He began to browse the martial skills on the shelves, including rupturing fist, splitting mountain palm, and other martial skills. After flipping through my slash, he was secretly surprised. This martial skill doesn't seem to be simple. Then, he looked at the seal shield, cloud steps, and voice transmission technique. He was very surprised. I didn't expect Iron Bone sect's martial skills to be so comprehensive. There are all kinds of martial skills. Unfortunately. Except for my slash, the other martial skills couldn't be compared to the martial skills cultivated in his own plane. While thinking, He Wudi came to the last shelf. He first saw Scarlet Sky Raging Flame Slash. After casually flipping through it, he murmured, "It's barely acceptable." A divine-grade martial skill was barely acceptable. These words were really awesome. He Wudi put down the Scarlet Heaven's Raging Flame Slash, and picked up another secret book from the shelf. Boom! When he saw the name of the martial skill, he was stunned on the spot as if he had been struck by lightning. After a while, He Wudi rubbed his eyes to make sure that he didn't read the name wrong. He exclaimed in disbelief, 7 Mystic Sunglow Fragment 1. Chapter 468. He would obtained the first remnant of the 7 profound rays shimmering light and ended up being hunted down. At that time, he had planned to throw it out to save his life, but as soon as he took it out, it disappeared into thin air. It was gone, and he couldn't explain it clearly, so he could only continue to be hunted down. He was hunted from the southern heavenly gate to the western heavenly gate, and from the eastern heavenly gate to the northern heavenly gate. In the end, he had no choice but to use his supernatural power to cross space in a hurry. A high-level account was hunted down by a group of high-level accounts, and in the end, he was hunted down to level 0. Looking at Hiwoody's experience, it was definitely worthy of the word tragedy. The cause of all this was the disappearance of the 7 profound rays shimmering light. Now that he came to the mortal realm and joined Iron Bone, he actually saw the missing remnant of the secret manual in the technique pavilion. Hiwoody felt as if he was struck by lightning. Why is it here? Why is it here? No! Hiwoody carefully observed and found that the remnant of the secret manual was as new as before, and it didn't emit an unfathomable aura. He guessed, this is not the original. Is it just a coincidence? He hurriedly flipped through it and found that the incantation and operation method recorded on it were the same as what he had seen before. He said with certainty, this must be a copy. A martial technique from a high-level plane had a copy in the mortal realm. This made Hiwoody dumbfounded. Junior brother Li Qingyang said, are you okay? I'm fine. Hiwoody forced himself to calm down and said, Senior brother Li, this secret manual doesn't seem to be simple. Why does Iron Bone have it? Li Qingyang thought that the reason for his shock was that the level of the martial technique was too high, so he didn't care and explained, Junior brother Iron Bone is actually a large sect that inherited the legacy of ancient times. A large sect that inherited the legacy of ancient times? Hiwoody was stunned. Li Qingyang told him everything that Jun Changshao had told him about Ao Lai, Mount Huagua, and Mount Iron Bone. After hearing this, Hiwoody was silent. No wonder there weren't many Iron Bone disciples, but there were many different kinds of martial arts. It turned out that they used to be an ancient sect. However, the 7 profound sunglow break was created by the 7 profound sage, so how could there be an Iron Bone? Wait a minute. Hiwoody suddenly remembered that the 7 profound holy sovereign wasn't someone from his plane. He had ascended from some mortal world. The ancient Iron Bone has such a martial skill, and the 7 profound saint sovereign has ascended. Could there be a connection between the two? Senior brother Li, Hiwoody asked, where is the first sect leader of our Iron Bone sect? He had a bold idea. It was very likely that the 7 profound holy sovereign was related to the first sect master of the Iron Bone sect, or perhaps they were the same person. It was easy to explain why the Iron Bone faction had the 7 mysterious sunglow fragment scroll. Li Qingyang shook his head and said, I'm afraid only the sect leader knows where Senior Sun, the founder of Iron Bone, went. This Senior Sun was the great sage, Heaven's equal, Sun Wukong, that Jun Changshao had fabricated. Only the sect leader knew. Hiwoody thought to himself, I have to ask. Pfft. Jun Changshao, who was sitting in the main hall, spat out a mouthful of tea. He thought, do they really think that Iron Bone is an ancient sect, and Sun Wukong is the founder of the sect? Little he. He put down the teacup and said, is this question very important? Hiwoody said, my Iron Bone sect has many martial skills. I'm also very curious about the sect's past. Jun Changshao thought quickly and said, this is the sect's secret history. However, since you're my last disciple, I don't mind telling you. Hiwoody immediately pricked up his ears. Jun Changshao said seriously, actually, the founder of Iron Bone, the first sect leader, went through 81 disasters. He wore a golden armor and stepped on 7 colored clouds to ascend to the upper world. These martial skills of the sect were also left behind by him. 7 colored clouds to ascend to the upper world? Wasn't this very compatible with the 7 profound sage, who controlled 7 attributes? As expected. Hiwoody suddenly realized and thought, the great sage, Heaven's equal, who created Iron Bone, and the 7 profound sage are the same person. This falling star continent should be the place where he ascended to the upper world. Even in his wildest dreams, Jun Changshao would never have imagined that his nonsense would actually match up with the 7 profound holy venerate of a higher plane. Moreover, it would even make this fellow muddle-headed and forcibly fill in the blanks. After returning to his room, he woody thought for the entire night, and his mood became more and more excited. The 7 profound sage was an extremely powerful expert. He had accidentally crossed the void and came to the world he used to live in, and even joined the sect he created. This was completely a good fortune. What good fortune? It was completely similar, and it was purely a coincidence. If I cultivate here, I might be able to pry into a higher level of profoundness in the future and break through to the unreachable sage realm. The more he woody thought, the more excited he became. He secretly decided, I'll cultivate in Iron Bone. With so many coincidences, he firmly believed that Iron Bone was the sect created by the 7 profound sage, and it was the place to become a stronger expert. Thus, his mentality had changed greatly. Leave? Impossible. After experiencing memory loss 3 times and joining the Iron Bone 4 times, he woody finally thought it through. He truly integrated himself into the sect and began to cultivate seriously. Because of the 7 profound sage, he was actually in awe of sect leader Jun. After all, he was the current sect leader. If he wanted to pry into a higher level of cultivation in the future, he might be able to provide a lot of help. Night fell. Close the door. He woody shouted loudly, and then closed the door with a smile on his face, fully immersing himself in the role of the last disciple. Sect leader. Li Qingyang, who was standing in front of the hall, was puzzled. Junior brother, he seems to be very happy. Jun Changshao stood with his hands behind his back and said, because he has completely understood what it means to be unyielding and unyielding. It's just that, Li Qingyang said, if junior brother's strange illness is not cured, there is a possibility that it will recur. Half of his illness is caused by his inner demons. Once the inner demons are gone, he will naturally recover, Jun Changshao said. Speaking of strange illnesses, he was reminded of Shi Jingxian. He couldn't help but secretly say, I wonder if an elementary spirit medicine can cure her eye disease? I've said before that I will pay a visit to Miaohua Palace. When I'm done with the matters in Jinyang County, I can go and take a look. The system said, why don't you go now? If you can cure Miaohua Palace's palace master's eye disease, you will owe her a big favor. If she knows that Iron Bone is in trouble, she might come out and help. This, Jun Changshao pondered for a moment and said, why didn't I think of that? Miaohua Palace was a 4th-rate sect. If he could form a good relationship with them, there would be no harm in it. Moreover, according to the information he had, Miaohua Palace was located in a 5th-rate county. Although it was a 4th-rate sect like Gui Yuan Sect and Duanshui Pavilion, it should be stronger than the others. Jun Changshao slapped his forehead and said, I always thought that Palace Master Shi was a woman. I completely forgot that her sect is actually very powerful. The system had given him some inspiration and put a visit to Miaohua Palace on the agenda. However, before that, he had to make arrangements for his disciples to improve their cultivation faster. No matter how strong Miaohua Palace was, it was only an external force. If he wanted to avoid being bullied on the falling star continent, he had to rely on himself and his disciples. Chapter 469. The duration of the token was 3 months. 1 month had passed, so Jun Changshao was a little anxious about how to face a 6th-class county and 2 4th-class sections. Find Sheng Wanhong. No. The Heavenly Mandate Academy had no right to interfere with the matters between the counties. Jun Changshao agreed with the system's suggestion. After all, the only power he could rely on now was Miaohua Palace, which he had a little relationship with. Next, he settled the affairs of the sect and distributed a large number of natural spiritual stones to the disciples so that they could improve faster. To be honest, even with the spirit-gathering matrix and energy-gathering pills, the Iron Bone disciples were already breaking through very quickly. With the addition of the spiritual stones, the speed would be unimaginably fast. 2 months. There would be earth-shaking changes. After everything was arranged, Jun Changshao left Iron Bone on the Hurricane Wolf King with the little dragon. He didn't bring the disciples because he wanted them to break through faster. Everyone didn't disappoint sect leader Jun. They were cultivating with the clear heart technique all the time. The martial spirit of the entire sect was even stronger. Senior Sister Lu. Yao Menjing sat in the cafeteria and said enviously, I also want to cultivate martial arts like senior brother. The disciples of Iron Bone were all cultivating. She was the only one who had nothing to do every day. The main reason was that she was too young. Sect leader Jun meant that she could start learning martial arts when she was 12 or 13 years old. Lu Wancher smiled and said, you can find second senior brother and ask him to teach you martial arts techniques. The sect leader said that I'm too young to cultivate for now. Yao Menjing pouted. Lu Wancher put down her spoon and blinked. She smiled and said, second senior brother is easy to talk to. I'll take you to him. So, she led Yao Menjing to Li Qingyang and told him the purpose of her visit. Our general manager Li was indeed easy to talk to. He couldn't resist Lu Wancher's coaxing and finally agreed to let the little girl enter the technique pavilion to choose her martial arts techniques. Menjing. Lu Wancher accompanied her into the technique pavilion. Holding the muscle bone strengthening scripture, she smiled and said, you can cultivate your martial arts techniques first and open your meridians. Okay. Yao Menjing nodded but accepted the secret manual. She looked at the shelf on the far right and unconsciously walked over. It was filled with evil sect martial arts. Jun Changshao had obtained these items from the evil sects he had annihilated. He did not agree with the difference between good and evil, so he placed the evil sect's mental cultivation method in the technique pavilion. If a disciple had talent in this area, they could also take it to cultivate. The word evil didn't come from cultivation, but from man-made actions. Even if one practiced righteous martial arts, doing evil things behind the scenes was not righteous, it was evil. Although heretical cultivators were a little extreme when it came to cultivation, as long as they didn't do anything heartless, they wouldn't be considered heretical. Of course. Sect leader Jun had warned them again and again that they were not allowed to cultivate as they pleased if they did not have the talent to cultivate evil arts. In Iron Bone, Jiangye was the only one who had the talent to become a heretic. Now, he had basically given up and focused all his attention on the system martial arts. Senior Sister Lu. Yao Menjing picked up an evil sect's mental cultivation method and scratched her head. Can I cultivate this mental cultivation method? Lu Wancher was surprised. You want to cultivate an evil sect's martial arts? No, no. She hurriedly shook her head. The sect leader said that I can't casually cultivate evil sect's martial arts, or else it'll be easy for me to go mad. Yao Menjing hugged the secret manual tightly and begged, Senior Sister Lu, I really want to learn. This, Lu Wancher was silent for a while, then said, since it's like this, then learn it. She wasn't old, so she didn't understand the consequences of cultivating evil sect's martial arts. If Li Qingyang came along, he would definitely try his best to stop his junior sister from cultivating evil sect's martial arts. Thank you, Senior Sister Lu. Yao Menjing smiled brightly, then chose a few evil sect's martial arts and left happily with Lu Wancher. The path of evil cultivation was filled with danger. This little lowly, whether her choice today was right or wrong, no one could say for sure. On the second day, Li Qingyang came to the technique pavilion for a routine check. When he found the record of Yao Menjing's martial arts, he was shocked. Why did that little girl choose evil sect's martial arts? Do. He hurriedly went to the cafeteria and asked anxiously, where's little junior sister? Lu Wancher said, she's cultivating martial arts in the inner courtyard. Li Qingyang hurriedly went to the inner courtyard, but Yao Menjing's room was locked from the inside. No matter how he knocked, there was no response. Lu Qianqian coincidentally walked over. Seeing her second junior brother's anxious face, she asked, what's wrong? Li Qingyang hurriedly told her that Yao Menjing chose evil sect's martial arts. Bang! The door collapsed, and cold air filled the air. Li Qingyang's mouth twitched. thinking, "Senior sister, you're too violent." Lu Qianqian retracted her palm and walked in. She saw Yao Menjing on the ground, waved her hand, and carried her to the medicine hall. "Not good, little junior sister fainted. What's the situation?" "I heard senior brother Li say that she cultivated evil sect's martial arts." Iron Bone disciples heard the news and all headed to the medicine hall. Woo! Inside the medicine hall, Lu Wancher cried and blamed herself. "It's all my fault, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have let little junior sister choose evil sect's martial arts." "Girl, don't cry." Elder Wei softly shouted. One of his hands was still on the unconscious Yao Menjing's pulse, checking why she fainted. Lu Wancher hurriedly stopped crying. Strange, strange. After the diagnosis, Elder Wei was confused. Her meridians are fine, and her breathing is stable. Why did she faint? Jiangya, who was standing at the side, said, "Could it be that she suffered a setback while cultivating evil sect's martial arts?" "That's possible." Elder Wei could only think so. Ho. At this moment, a dark aura suddenly appeared around the unconscious Yao Menjing. Elder Wei's face changed as he hurriedly took 2 steps back and said in shock, This is. Jiangya also opened his eyes wide. Ho. The ink-like attribute was still spreading and completely enveloping Yao Menjing. The medicine hall was filled with a murderous aura, causing Li Qingyang, Lu Wancher, and the others to shudder. Elder Wei and Jiangya's gazes kept changing as a storm rose in their hearts. Yao Menjing, who was enveloped by the demonic aura, gradually rose and hung in the air. Her entire body seemed to be swallowed by the darkness. A few minutes later, the strange aura completely entered Yao Menjing's body as she floated back onto the bed. The oppressive murderous aura dissipated along with the dark aura. Everything returned to normal as if nothing had happened. Elder Wei. Li Qingyang hurriedly said, "What's going on?" Elder Wei was silent. Jiangya, who was standing at the side, was also silent. "What's going on?" Lu Wancher also asked. She didn't care about the dark aura, but whether Yao Menjing was all right. Elder Jiang. After a while, Elder Wei said, "You cultivated in the evil sects before, so you should know the situation." Jiangya nodded and said seriously, "If I'm not wrong, this girl has awakened her innate demonic body." Chapter 470. Evil Cultivator and Demon Cultivator. There were 2 more extreme professions in the Falling Star continent. The cultivation method of evil cultivators was nothing more than using unorthodox cultivation methods to achieve opportunistic means. Demon cultivators were different. They cultivated real demon techniques and absorbed the demon chi between heaven and earth. Evil cultivators were equivalent to martial cultivators and demon cultivators were equivalent to sword cultivators. Both were extremely rare. It was said that there were many demon cultivators in the Falling Star continent 10,000 years ago. There were also many demon sects that could compete with the top sections. However, demon cultivators' cultivation methods were more extreme than evil cultivators. Therefore, the major forces that claimed to be righteous joined forces and issued a demon-slaying order to prevent future generations from being bewitched. It was a war that lasted for 100 years. It was said that even martial emperors participated. Later generations called it the war between the righteous and evil. There were many righteous experts, and the demon sects were outnumbered. In the end, they were gradually eradicated. Today, there were no more demon sects in the entire continent. Of course. If you don't remove the roots, they will grow again. There were many demon cultivators who survived. They either lived in seclusion in the mountains or hid their identities and lived in the Falling Star continent. The demon-slaying order was still in effect. As long as the righteous sects found demon cultivators or demon sects, they would go all out to eliminate them. Therefore, every once in a while, there would be news of some demon cultivators or demon sects being discovered and then besieged by various experts. Why did they say this? Because Yao Menjing had awakened the Khanate demon body. A person with such a physique must be a demon cultivator, and a top one at that. Elder Wei frowned and said, 10,000 years ago, the patriarch of the Demon Emperor sect, the Demon Emperor, had the Khanate demon body. He fought with the 9 great martial emperors alone. It was said that he was the strongest person in the falling star continent. I've heard of it too. Jiangya said. Unfortunately, even though the Demon Emperor's cultivation was unprecedented, he was still defeated by the 9 great martial emperors. In the end, he was killed by the 9 great martial emperors on the Demon Mountain. Li Qingyang and the others had never heard of this, but they were amazed that one person could fight with the 9 great martial emperors alone. This was definitely a super existence that could only be looked up to. Speaking of which, was Yi Xingqian among the 9 great martial emperors? No. The reason why he could become one of the 9 emperors was also because of the Devil Emperor. Although the other party had died in battle on the Demon Mountain, he had taken 2 martial emperors with him. That was how Yi Xingqian was able to comprehend the providence of heaven and earth and become a martial emperor. The ancient emperors fought for supremacy and divided the falling star continent into 13 prefectures. Some kind of restriction existed in this world, and only 9 people could ascend to the throne and enjoy the worship of all living beings. After the fall of the martial emperor, the emperor was scattered across the world, searching for the most suitable martial cultivator to take over. Yi Xingqian was the new martial emperor after the war between the righteous and demonic factions. What about those who had not become martial emperors? They also had the opportunity to become martial emperors. However, they had to challenge the 9 great martial emperors. If they won, they would replace them. It was very unrealistic for Wu Sheng to fight a martial emperor. Therefore, since ancient times, no one had been able to shake the 9 great martial emperors. They could only sullenly wait for them to fall. Perhaps the world could no longer withstand the battle of the martial emperors, so it had sealed off the path to becoming a martial emperor. However, there were exceptions, and that was the demonic cultivators who did not walk the normal path. 10,000 years ago, a peerless genius was born among the demonic cultivators. With an innate demonic body, after hundreds of years of cultivation, he broke through the shackles of heaven and earth and became a demon emperor. He also single-handedly founded the famous Demon Emperor Sect. We must be ranked to succeed the martial emperor. You can ignore the rules of heaven and earth and break through to a higher level. How can you do that? Therefore, the martial cultivators of the falling star continent united and issued the demon-slaying order. Although the slogan was to slay demons, in fact, they were worried that if they were allowed to grow stronger, it would bring disaster to the martial cultivators. Who was right and who was wrong 10,000 years ago was no longer important. The important thing was that before the Demon Emperor died, he looked up to the sky and laughed, saying, "As long as heaven and earth are not destroyed, the demonic path will exist forever. I have planted the seed of an innate demonic body in the world. If it awakens in the future, it will definitely restore the glory of the demonic path." His voice contained supreme emperor power and majestic demonic chi. Not only did it ripple in the sky, but it also enveloped the entire continent, wantonly disturbing the minds of living beings. According to the historical records, this was the divine power that the Demon Emperor used before he died. He planted his innate demonic body in the hearts of the people, until one day it sprouted, bloomed, and bore fruit. As long as heaven and earth were not destroyed, the demonic path would exist forever. This sentence became the spiritual pillar of the demonic cultivators who were lucky enough to survive. They were also waiting bitterly for the awakening of the innate demonic body, because that would be their hope to restore the demonic path. More than 1,000 years after the Demon Emperor's death, an ordinary young man walked out of the mountains and accidentally awakened the innate demonic body. From then on, he embarked on the path of demonic cultivation. This was the life of a protagonist. Unfortunately, his identity as a demonic cultivator was exposed, and he was hunted down by the righteous sect. In the end, he died an unnatural death. In the following years, 7 innate demonic bodies appeared one after another. Some of them died during their growth, and some gathered the surviving demonic cultivators to strengthen the demonic path. In the end, their deeds were exposed and they were eradicated. Because innate demonic bodies appeared every once in a while, there were detailed records in the history books. Elder Wei and Jiangye had naturally heard of it. When Yao Menjing's body was surrounded by demonic qi, they determined that this was definitely the sign of the awakening of the innate demonic body. This is troublesome, troublesome. Elder Wei frowned and said, "This girl has the innate demonic body. She is the public enemy of the entire falling star continent." Jiangya held his chin and murmured, "The first 8 were all men, but the 9th was a girl, and a 7 or 8-year-old girl." Li Qingyang also realized that the awakening of little junior sister's innate demonic body was not a good thing, so he hurriedly said, "Elder Wei, we have to inform the sect master quickly. Let's contact him through telepathy." Elder Wei said. Jiangya hurriedly performed his martial arts, but unfortunately, our sect master Jun was already far away, and there was no way to contact him. Elder Wei said, "The girl's awakening of the innate demonic body did not cause too much of a commotion, so the outside world might not know about it. Let's not spread the news and wait for the sect master to return before we discuss it." "All right." Jiangya agreed. Back to Jun Changshao, riding on the Hurricane Wolf King, traveled for about a day, and entered the 5th grade county where Miaohua Palace was located. He entered a city called Happy City. A 5th grade county was very powerful, and even an ordinary city like this was far superior to Qingyang City in terms of size, number of people, and even the experts. Sect Master Jun was dumbfounded as soon as he entered. Because on the main street of Happy City, he could see luxuriously decorated brothels every few steps, and there were gorgeous beauties standing at the entrance, throwing flirtatious glances at him. This place is really a happy place for men. Jun Changshao shook his head, ignoring the beauty's calls, and chose an inn to stay in. "Have you heard? The remnants of the demonic sect secretly returned to the demonic mountain and met with the experts of the various sections. They fought for a long time. This is big news, of course we have heard. That self-proclaimed 36th patriarch of the demonic monarch sect has just entered Wuhuang, but he dares to fight with the experts of the 1st grade sections. He is really overestimating himself." Jun Changshao sat by the window, and he had nothing to do but listen to their discussion. He couldn't help but think to himself, Wuhuang is just a beginner in their eyes. The martial cultivators of this 5th grade county are really awesome. He was just casually listening, and then he rested for the night before continuing his journey. Finally, he arrived at the foot of the mountain where Miaohua Palace was located. Chapter 471. Miaohua Palace was located on Miaoling Peak of Miaohua Mountain. From afar, this peak looked like a young girl standing gracefully, which was why it was named Miaoling coincidentally. The first palace lord of Miaohua Palace came here because of this feature. Therefore, she established a sect that only accepted female disciples. In the hearts of countless men, Miaohua Palace was definitely a holy land because all the female disciples were as beautiful as flowers. Unfortunately, the sect had a rule that men were not allowed to enter. Therefore, entering Miaohua Palace to tour the flowers one day became the dream of many men. Some people would not turn back until they hit a wall. They knew that they could not enter, but they still came to Miaohua Mountain, hoping to see the beautiful female disciples. This was not the case. At the foot of Miaohua Mountain, there were many handsome young masters and famous young heroes gathered. Jun Changshao walked over and looked at the 30 to 50 young elites gathered. He could not help but think to himself, it's quite lively. Swoosh! A young master dressed like a scholar walked over and opened his folding fan elegantly. He smiled and said, "Friend, are you also here to see the splendor of Miaohua Palace's disciples?" You can say that." Jun Changshao naturally wanted to see how different the disciples of Miaohua Palace were from the 5th-rate Holy Spring sect. The scholar sized him up and said, "Judging from your attire, you shouldn't be from a big family." Jun Changshao wanted to reply, "What does it have to do with you whether I'm from a big family or not?" However, it was better to keep a low profile when outside, so he replied, "I'm from an ordinary family." The scholar closed his fan and pointed at the young elites in front of him. "They're all young masters from famous clans. My friend, you're from an ordinary family. You definitely won't be given a second glance by the beautiful disciples of Ingenious Flower Palace." Oh? Jun Changshao smiled and said, from what you're saying, they came to Miaohua Palace to win a smile from the beauty? You're not? The scholar asked. No. Jun Changshao said honestly, I'm here to visit Miaohua Palace. His voice was a little loud. When the young masters nearby heard him, they all looked at him in surprise. Did he hear it wrong? This guy wants to pay a visit to Wonderful Flower Palace? The scholar was taken aback as well. Soon after, he smiled and said, Wondrous Flower Palace has never welcomed men. Isn't it a joke for a friend to visit? Is there something wrong with his head? If Miaohua Palace could be placed anywhere, why would we be standing at the foot of the mountain? Looks like he's a country bumpkin from the mountains. He hasn't heard of the rules of Ingenious Flower Palace. Everyone discussed in low voices, and all of their words were filled with contempt. Jun Changshao was a little speechless. So, just because you're not qualified to enter, I have to follow you? They were just a bunch of bored young masters from rich families. Sect leader Jun didn't lower himself to their level and continued to walk forward. They're coming down, they're coming down. Suddenly, someone shouted. Jun Changshao looked up and saw a dozen or so disciples of the Ingenious Flower Palace walking down the stairs. It had to be said that they had slender figures and good looks. It was easy for them to attract the attention of men. Walking in front was a disciple called Li who often accompanied Shi Jingxian. Senior sister. A female disciple said in a low voice, there's another group of lechers at the foot of the mountain. Should we chase them away? Li said indifferently, they're just flies. Just ignore them. The dozen or so disciples of Ingenious Flower Palace coming down the mountain immediately attracted the attention of the young masters. They all looked up. The falling flowers were willing, but the heartless flowing water was merciless. They didn't even look at them and treated them like air. The young masters who came here were already used to it, so they didn't mind being ignored. Instead, they slowly admired the disciples of Ingenious Flower Palace. Young Master Su, I think the disciple walking in front has the most extraordinary appearance. The second to last female disciple is petite and extremely cute. She's the type I like the most. I think the second one is quite good. Everyone discussed in low voices. Jun Changshao shook his head and thought, have they never seen a woman before? Sect leader Jun didn't know. The disciples of Ingenious Flower Palace cultivated on Mount Ingenious, which was full of spiritual energy. Over time, they formed a unique temperament that other women couldn't compare to. The young masters had seen their fair share of beauties, but compared to the disciples of Ingenious Flower Palace, they were really vulgar. Not long after, Li led her fellow disciples down the mountain and continued to ignore the young masters on the side of the road. They were all like proud peacocks. Miss Li, Jun Changshao said, we meet again. The young masters standing at the side were stunned. Then, they were all filled with murderous rage. This guy actually took the initiative to greet them. If they angered the other party, they would be chased away together with everyone. Even 10,000 deaths wouldn't be enough to absolve them. In the past, there were people who tried to worm their way into being friends with them. As a result, outsiders weren't allowed to get close to Mount Ingenious for half a year. Sect leader Jun's words caused intense anger to be directed at him from all directions. He thought to himself in surprise, what's going on? Li frowned when she heard someone call her by her nickname. However, when she heard the words, she was stunned. She turned around and exclaimed, it's you. Everyone was dumbfounded. The disciples of Ingenious Flower Palace knew this guy. Jun Changshao said, Miss Li, is it strange that I'm here? Li frowned and said, why are you here? I'm here to pay a visit, Jun Changshao said. Li fell silent. Of course, she remembered the agreement between the palace lord and Jun Changshao at the Iron Bone Palace. However, she didn't expect him to come so soon. What's wrong? Jun Changshao smiled and said, am I not welcome? Li snorted and said, since you're here to pay a visit, my ingenious flower palace will naturally welcome you." As she said that, she made a gesture and said, "Please." When they heard the words welcome and please, the young masters standing nearby were stunned. They even suspected that they had heard wrongly. They didn't hear wrongly because they saw with their own eyes Jun Changshao climb the stairs under the guidance of Li Er and the other disciples. Oh my God! Who is that guy? He's actually qualified to enter Ingenious Flower Palace. From the looks of it, he seems to be old friends with the disciples of Ingenious Flower Palace. Everyone was talking at once. Their eyes were filled with envy. Everyone. Jun Changshao waved his hand as he climbed the stairs and said, "I'll go up first. You guys can continue to watch from below." Damn it. You guys looked down on me just now. I must provoke you guys. Jun Changshao's way of slapping them in the face was really a little childish and childish. What? In the study, Shi Jingxian stood up and said happily, "Sect Master Jun is here to pay a visit?" "Yes." Li said, "He's been arranged to stay in the West Wing by the disciples." However, she muttered in her heart, "My palace lord, that guy is here to pay a visit. You don't have to be so excited." Li Shi Jingxian hurriedly combed her hair and clothes and said in a panic, "Should I change my clothes and dress up?" Chapter 472. Jun Changshao was arranged to stay in the West Wing. It was a separate area and he was the only one there. It was as if he was isolated from the world. The environment was not bad and the spiritual energy was abundant. Sitting in the gazebo, Jun Changshao felt the spiritual energy and murmured, as expected of a fourth-rate sect. As he spoke, he released his spiritual senses and spread them around. Miaohua Palace was huge and majestic. It was obvious that it was a sect with a strong foundation. However, there were not many disciples. Under Jun Changshao's spiritual senses, there were only 20 to 30,000 disciples. Since the sect mainly accepted female disciples, it was normal for there to be fewer disciples. Although there were few disciples in Miaohua Palace, they were strong. Martial masters could be seen everywhere. Even Wuzong was not rare. There were also several martial king powerhouses in the outer court hall. Judging from their clothes, they should be elders. Fifth-rate sects also had martial kings. It was not surprising that there were so many fourth-rate sections. Jun Changshao murmured, "Palace Master Shi is only at the level of Wuzong. Can she control so many martial kings?" In his opinion, Shi Jingxian was just a weak woman with an eye disease. It would be difficult for her to control such a powerful fourth-rate sect. The system said, "What does it have to do with the host whether they can control them or not?" Jun Changshao ignored it and wanted to continue prying. However, he found that there were some restrictions in some places that prevented spiritual senses from penetrating. The system said, "Every force has a side that no one knows. It's impolite for the host to pry without restraint." That's true. Jun Changshao retracted his spiritual senses. At that moment, the martial kings of Miaohua Palace seemed to have noticed him. They released their spiritual senses and completely shrouded him with an unfriendly aura. Jun Changshao was embarrassed. Fortunately, the elders of Miaohua Palace did not pursue the matter on account that he was a guest. They left after a slight warning. Sect Master Jun Lier walked in and said indifferently, "The palace master invites you in." In the main hall of Miaohua Palace, 8 elders sat at the head of the table. Most of them were over 50 years old. Some of them looked old, while others were still charming. Judging from their auras, they were all martial kings. As soon as Jun Changshao came in, everyone's spiritual senses pressed down on him. There was a faint displeasure between their eyebrows. It was already unreasonable for a young man to come in, and he even unscrupulously released his spiritual senses to spy on them. This would definitely make them even more unhappy. Sect Master Jun, an old woman sitting on the right side of the palace master's seat, said lightly, "Young and promising." Her name was Zhangsun Fonghua, and she was the current Grand Elder of Miaohua Palace. Her strength had already reached the peak of the Martial King realm. She was in charge of most of the sect's internal affairs, and was the person Shi Jingxian valued the most. The second elder was also a peak Martial King. She sat to the left of the Great Elder. Her name was Leng Xingyu. She was a beautiful middle-aged woman. However, when he looked at sect leader Jun, there was a hint of displeasure in his eyes. He said, "Sect leader Jun, may I know the reason for your visit? It was your palace master who asked me to pay a return visit. Now that I'm here, you're asking me the reason for my visit. This is a little fucked up." Jun Changshao muttered in his heart, but he still smiled and said, "I've long heard that Miaohua Palace is one of the top sects in Jianghu. I'm here today to broaden my horizons." "I thought you were here to challenge us," Zhangsun Fanghua said. Leng Xingyu said, "Sect leader Jun first challenged the Haoqi sect, then the Sacred Spring sect. Later, you destroyed 4 evil sects in Huayang County. You've been very arrogant recently. Do these two have something against me? Why are they speaking in such a sarcastic manner? Or could it be that female martial cultivators who cultivate martial arts all year round have endocrine disorders, just like Abbess Miju?" Jun Changshao clasped his hands behind his back and said with a smile, "The motto of the Iron Bones sect is that we won't attack unless we're attacked first. Those forces that were destroyed only have themselves to blame." The elders of Miaohua Palace cast disdainful looks at him. It was definitely not because the main character was born with a mocking face. It was because the people of Miaohua Palace had a strong repulsion toward men. Even if it were other men, they would have received the same treatment. As a keyboard warrior, Jun Changshao was confident that he could fight 300 rounds with them. But when he thought about how he was here to make friends, he smiled awkwardly. Sect leader Jun Zhangsun Fanghua said indifferently, "Miaohua Palace has never entertained men. So, you'd better leave the mountain today." Jun Changshao was instantly enraged. He said coldly, "I came here as promised. I haven't even seen Palace Lord Shi and you're already chasing me away. Is this how Miaohua Palace treats its guests? I don't want to lower myself to your level because you're women." Zhangsun Fanghua said in a low voice, "Sect leader Jun, please watch your words and tone." "My tone is like that." Jun Changshao's temper rose. He said, "If you don't like it, you can cover your ears." "How dare you!" Leng Xingyu shouted coldly. The elders also stared at him angrily. The atmosphere in the main hall suddenly became serious. With so many martial kings glaring at him, sect leader Jun was not afraid. Instead, he said coldly, "Palace Lord Shi, your Miaohua Palace doesn't seem to welcome me. I'll take my leave first." Whoosh! With that, he waved his sleeves and turned to leave. "Sect leader Jun, wait." Shi Jingxuan's voice came from the side door of the main hall. She was wearing a clean long dress and walked in with Li Er's help. She was a stunning beauty to begin with. Now that she had put on light makeup, she looked even more like a fairy who was untainted by the mortal world. "Palace Lord." The elders who were originally incomparably cold hurriedly stood up and bowed respectfully. Their eyes were filled with respect. "Elders." Shi Jingxian stopped in her seat and reprimanded softly, "Sect leader Jun is an honored guest invited by me. Don't be too rude." "Yes." Everyone replied in unison. Jun Changshao was surprised that a group of martial kings was so respectful to a Wuzong. He thought to himself, this woman can't be judged by her appearance. Sect leader Jun, Shi Jingxian smiled and said, "Sorry for offending you just now. I apologize on their behalf. Please don't take offense." The great elder and the others frowned. They heard from Li that the palace lord cared a lot about this kid. It seemed that it was true. "That's right." Jun Changshao turned around and said, "If I were as polite as Palace Lord Shi, I would definitely be polite." Shi Jingxian sat down. In this kind of situation, she didn't look like a weak woman. Instead, she exuded the aura of someone who had been in a high position for a long time. After all, she was the palace lord of a fourth-rate sect. Naturally, she had the dignity of a palace lord. Jun Changshao was secretly surprised and said, "It's completely different from when I was on Mount Hua." Sect leader Jun Shi Jingxian said, "I heard that there have been frequent battles in southwest Yangzhou recently. Your Iron Bones Qingyang County hasn't been affected, right?" To be honest, it was as if she was a completely different person from when she learned that Jun Changshao had come. "It's affected," Jun Changshao said helplessly. "Not long ago, Xinjiang County attacked." Shi Jingxian said, "If that's the case, why are you still free to visit my Miaohua Palace?" Jun Changshao glanced at the elders present and said, "Palace Lord Shi, I have an important matter to attend to. I wonder if you can ask them to leave for a while." Chapter 473. What's so important that he needs to talk to the palace lord alone? In my opinion, that guy purposely sent us away so that he can talk to the palace lord alone. Judging from his appearance, he must be a womanizer. I'm just afraid that the palace lord's willpower is not strong enough and she will be bewitched by him. Outside the main hall, the Miaohua Palace elders discussed worriedly. Zhangsun Fanghua and Ling Xingyue's expressions were ugly. They did not have a good impression of Jun Changshao. Now that he was alone with the palace lord, they felt that it was not a good thing. "Grand Elder," Ling Xingyue said, "Li Er is right. The palace lord might really have feelings for that guy. We can't just stand by and watch. We have to stop it." Zhangsun Fanghua said, "You know the palace lord's personality. How can we stop her?" Shi Jingxian had absolute authority in Miaohua Palace. Although they were martial kings and elders, they could only listen to orders and did not dare to disobey. Ling Xingyue said, "If there's no other way, let's ask the Grand Elder to step in." Every sect had a few surviving experts of the older generation. These people were called Grand Elders. Blue Mountain Sect and Sacred Springs Sect also had Grand Elders whose cultivation had reached Martial King. However, because they were focused on cultivating martial arts, they were in seclusion all year round. They would only come out when something big happened in the sect. If Jun Changshao did not come to cause trouble in Xinjiang County, the Blue Mountain Sect's Grand Elder would definitely appear. To become a sixth-rate sect, there had to be an expert of Wuzong's level. If a sect wanted to become a sect, the toughest requirement was to have a martial king expert. What about the requirement for a fourth-rate sect? Not only did it have to have at least 5 martial kings, but it also had to have a Wu Huang. Therefore, the Grand Elder of Miaohua Palace who was in seclusion all year round was an expert of Wu Huang's level. She was not the only one. The previous palace lord was also Wu Huang. However, she left Miaohua Palace to travel after helping Shi Jingxian ascend to the position. Xinjiang County's spiritual stream sect only had 1 Wu Huang, while Miaohua Palace had 2. This was the difference between a 6th-rate sect and a 5th-rate sect. Of course, it didn't mean that high-level sects had to have high-level experts. Some sects were declining day by day, and their strength was not as strong as before. They might not have the same level of experts as before. Zhangsun Fanghua said, before Grand Elder went into seclusion, she said that if there is nothing important, we should not disturb her. Ling Xingyue fell silent. If the Grand Elder did not appear, no one could persuade the palace master. "I'm sorry." In the main hall, Shi Jingxian said weakly, "They don't like men, so they are hostile towards Sect Master Jun." After the elders left, she seemed to have changed into another person. The majesty of the palace master had disappeared, and her eyebrows were slightly furrowed, making people feel pity for her. "Isn't this change too fast?" Jun Changshao muttered in his heart. He increasingly felt that Shi Jingxian was not simple. "Palace Master Shi." He smiled and said, "Jun isn't someone who holds grudges. He won't take it to heart." "That's good." Shi Jingxian heaved a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Sect Master Jun, what important matter do you have?" It was hard to imagine that this was the stern-looking palace master who was sitting at the head of the table just now. Jun Changshao said, "Palace Master Shi, Jun recently met an expert who is proficient in the art of medicine. He is quite accomplished in treating eye diseases. Shi Jingxian hurriedly asked, who is it? Where is he? This senior likes to travel the world. June only met him once, and I don't know where he is now. June Changshao spouted nonsense. Shi Jingxian immediately became depressed. However, June Changshao changed the topic and said, before I left, that expert gave me a pill, saying that it could cure all difficult and complicated diseases. This June Changshao didn't have any illness, so he thought of Palace Lord Shi's eye disease. Therefore, I came back to visit, hoping to help you see the light again. The system was in awe of his ability to fabricate such a story. Shi Jingxian was not in high spirits. Over the years, she had visited many famous doctors and eaten many pills, but her eye disease could not be cured. She had long been disheartened. However, she was very grateful that Sect Master June thought of her and specially came to Miaohua Palace for this matter. Can I feel the pill first? Shi Jingxian asked. Yes. June Changshao placed the low-grade spirit medicine on the table. Shi Jingxian touched it randomly and took the pill in her hand. She said in surprise, the pill contains such rich heaven and earth attributes. She could feel it. June Changshao said, according to that expert, this pill was refined from hundreds of medicinal herbs. Shi Jingxian smiled and said, it's not poisonous, is it? June Changshao was silent. This woman was quite cautious. However, if someone gave her a pill and she ate it without any hesitation, what was the difference between her and a fool? Sect Master June, Shi Jingxian said, I want to test this pill. Yes. June Changshao said. Shi Jingxian said loudly, Fifth Elder, come in. The fifth elder, who was proficient in pills, walked in and took the pill in his hand. After careful analysis, he said, Palace Master, this pill has the effect of nourishing the body. The system only gave this explanation for the pill. The more miraculous effect was definitely not something she could understand or think of. After the fifth elder left, Shi Jingxian said apologetically, Sect Master June, although I trust you, there are some things that I have to consider carefully. I understand, June Changshao said. Shi Jingxian pinched the pill and opened her small mouth. The pill melted as soon as it entered her mouth, turning into pure energy that instantly filled her body. June Changshao looked at it intently and thought to himself, it must be effective. Curing Shi Jingxuan's eye disease was equivalent to earning a huge favor. If she sent someone to Qingyang County, it should be able to deter the powerhouses of the two sections. Outside the hall. When the fifth elder walked out, Zhang Sun Fanghua and Ling Xingyue hurried over and asked, what's the situation inside? The palace master asked me to test a pill. Pill? Everyone was confused. The fifth elder said, this pill should be given by that kid. Judging from the aura it emits, it has the effect of curing diseases. Effect of curing diseases? Zhang Sun Fanghua frowned slightly and said, could it be that that guy wants to cure the palace master's eye disease? Impossible. Ling Xingyue said, the palace master has this disease since birth. Many famous doctors are helpless. How can he cure it? In my opinion, that kid just found a random pill to win the palace master's favor, an elder said coldly. We can't let the palace master have too much contact with him, lest she falls too deep into it. Zhang Sun Fanghua frowned. Huff huff. At this moment, a majestic and cold aura suddenly surged in the hall, causing everyone's expression to change drastically. Oh no! Ling Xingyue exclaimed, the palace master has gone berserk. Whoosh! Whoosh! Zhang Sun Fanghua and the others couldn't care less and hurriedly rushed in. As soon as they entered, they saw Shi Jingxian standing at the head of the hall. Her body was surrounded by a blood-red aura, and her empty eyes flickered with a sinister light. She didn't look like a human, but a killing god. Everyone. June Changshao was dumbfounded. What's going on? Chapter 474. Shi Jingxian, who was standing in front of the chair, was surrounded by red attributes. Although her one eye was empty, it was filled with endless killing intent. It felt like a beast that had lost its consciousness. It made one's hair stand on end and scalp tingle. Jun Changshao was dumbfounded. How did a cute girl become so scary all of a sudden? The elders of Miaohua Palace, who had just entered, almost cursed when they heard him ask about the situation. Only you and the palace master were in the main hall. Now that she had gone berserk, who should we ask about the situation? Jun Changshao. Zhangsun Fanghua said angrily, "What's going on?" The fifth elder seemed to have thought of something and said, "Did the palace master go berserk after taking the pill just now?" Damn it! Zhangsun Fanghua glared at Jun Changshao and said, "Get into formation and stabilize the palace master." Whoosh! Whoosh! As they spoke, Leng Xingyue and the other elders rushed over. Their hands quickly formed strange seals, leaving behind a faint light wherever they stepped. Die! Shi Jingxian said in a low voice. The killing intent in her empty eyes was even stronger. She waved her small hand, and the red attributes gathered around her rushed over like a flood. Be careful! Zhangsun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue stretched out their palms. Dense spiritual energy erupted and instantly resisted the attacking red attributes. Buzz! Buzz! The three types of energy collided violently and instantly formed energy ripples that surged in all directions in the hall. The furnishings were instantly shattered. The system said, "Very strong, not inferior to the two peak martial kings at all." Fuck! Jun Changshao said in surprise, "That's powerful." In his opinion, Shi Jingshuan's cultivation was only at Wuzong. He did not expect her to erupt with such terrifying strength. No wonder she was the leader of a fourth-rate sect. No wonder the elders followed her orders. But, the system quickly analyzed. She's currently in a berserk state and has lost her rationality. Jun Changshao could also see it. In particular, her empty eyes were filled with killing intent. She would definitely kill anyone she met. Could it be that this powerful strength came from the berserk state? Boom! At this moment, Shi Jingshuan's red attribute had gained the absolute upper hand. She had directly repelled the power of the two peak martial kings. Thump! 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 Zhangsun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue retreated several steps, their expressions abnormally ugly. Shwa! 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 The other elders had already rushed over. Using a strange movement technique, they spun around, and their bodies were instantly filled with flowing light, which intertwined together to form an inescapable net, trapping Shi Jingxian within. Boom! Boom! The red attribute madly collided with the surroundings, causing the flowing light barrier to tremble incessantly, as if it could collapse at any moment. First elder, second elder. The fifth elder suppressed his boiling blood and said, "Come quickly." Zhangsun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue strode over. They stretched out their palms and pressed them tightly against the barrier. Their peak martial king cultivation erupted and instantly stabilized the barrier. Who? The elders felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. Boom! Boom! Trapped within the barrier, Shi Jingxian continuously bombarded the barrier. However, with 8 martial kings stabilizing the barrier, she was unable to break it. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Who can tell me what's going on? First elder, I feel that this is a huge misunderstanding. Jun Changxiao, who was standing in the iron prison, said with a crumbling face. The 8 elders of Ingenious Flower Palace subdued Shi Jingxian and then captured him. He was completely dumbfounded throughout the entire process. Zhangsun Fanghua fastened the chains and said coldly, "You'd better pray that the palace master is fine. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving Ingenious Flower Mountain alive." Jun Changshao was speechless. He had kindly come to deliver the medicine, but in the end, he was reduced to a prisoner. As expected, it was not easy to be a saint. The system was very puzzled. Even if a low-grade medicine has no effect, it shouldn't cause one to lose their rationality. Fuck. Jun Changshao sat on the wooden bed and said, "I've been screwed over by you. Why are you blaming me? If you didn't say that you wanted to befriend Ingenious Flower Palace, why would I be here? Why would I be imprisoned? I didn't put a knife to your neck and force you to come here. It's your fault. Don't explain. It's not my fault. I won't explain." They were arguing. Actually, with Jun Changxiao's strength, he could have just run away. However, if he didn't get to the bottom of this, it would be equivalent to offending Ingenious Flower Palace. Come to think of it, thinking about what happened in the main hall, he muttered, "When Palace Master Shi went berserk just now, there was a different kind of charm to her." The system was speechless. He was already locked up, but he still cared about her when she went berserk. Was this guy despicable? Sect Master Jun was locked up for 2 days. During this time, he didn't even have anyone to deliver food to. This made him speechless. Even if I offend people, they should at least give me something to eat. Caw caw. On the 3rd day, the chains were unlocked. Zhangsun Fanghua said unhappily, "The palace master invites you in." Jun Changshao got up from the wooden bed and hurriedly asked, "Palace Master Shi is fine?" Zhangsun Fanghua's face was cold as she said indifferently, "If anything happened to the palace master, you would have been dead by now." Jun Changshao didn't say anything. Under her guidance, he went to the inner courtyard of Ingenious Flower Palace and arrived at the independent courtyard where Shi Jingxian lived. Sect Master Jun. Just as he was about to enter, Zhangsun Fanghua said indifferently, "This old one doesn't want you to pester the palace master. It's best if you leave today." "Oh." Sect Master Jun nodded. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he saw Shi Jingxian sitting in front of the small pavilion. Her face was slightly pale, as if she had just recovered from a serious illness. "Sect Master Jun, are you here?" She heard the movement and spoke softly. Her voice was very weak, as if she didn't have any strength. The elementary spirit medicine didn't have any effect. Although he was mentally prepared, Jun Changshao still shook his head and said, "Palace Master Shi, I'm really sorry. Taking the pill made you feel uncomfortable." During the few days of being locked up, he had also thought about it. Shi Jingxuan's sudden outburst was definitely related to the elementary spirit medicine. Sect Master Jun, Shi Jingxian lowered her head and said apologetically, "I should be the one apologizing. No, it's my fault. I trusted that fraud who claimed to be an expert of Qi-Huang," Jun Changshao said. Shi Jingxian shook her head and said, "It's not the first time I've lost my rationality. Sect Master Jun happened to encounter it." "Not the first time." Jun Changshao was stunned. Shi Jingxian said bitterly, "I won't hide it from Sect Master Jun. Actually, not only do I have an eye disease, I also have a strange illness. Every time I'm depressed, I'll lose my rationality and do some cruel things. After I recover, I can't remember anything." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. He thought about how gentle and cute she was now, and then how she had gone berserk in the main hall with killing intent all over her body. One was like an angel, while the other was like a demon. He couldn't help but mutter in his heart, "This woman doesn't have dual personality, does she?" "It's possible," the system said. The disciples of Ingenious Flower Palace didn't know what dual personality was. They understood their palace master's situation. As long as they saw her depressed look, they would immediately comfort her to prevent her from going berserk. Sect Master Jun, Shi Jingxian squeezed out a smile on her pale face and said, "I didn't scare you just now, did I?" "Ah." Jun Changshao said, "It's okay, it's okay." Shi Jingxian said softly, "Sect Master Jun, after taking the pill you gave me..." At this point, her little face suddenly turned red and she said, I think I saw your face." Jun Changshao was startled and said, "The pill was effective?" Shi Jingxian shook her head and said, "I only felt my vision suddenly light up, and then I lost consciousness. When I woke up, my surroundings were still dark." "That's not right." Jun Changshao thought, since it lit up, it means that she regained her vision, which means the pill was effective. Why can't she see anything? The system said, this eye disease of hers is a bit tricky. Wait a minute. Jun Changshao suddenly thought of a very serious question and said, Palace Master Shi, you said that you lost your rationality because you were depressed? Yes. You were also depressed before? Yes. Why were you depressed? Because. Shi Jingxian lowered her head and said softly, I saw Sect Master Jun, he saw me. She was depressed. Sect Master Jun crouched in a corner and hugged his head with both hands, extremely depressed and howling in his heart, how can she be depressed after seeing my appearance? Ugly, the system said. Chapter 475. Jun Changshao wasn't ugly. In fact, he was very handsome. Then, why was Shi Jingxian so depressed that she went berserk? Because in her heart, sect leader Jun should look like that. He shouldn't look like this. Shi Jingxian, who was born with an eye disease, had never seen a human before. All her understanding was based on her own imagination. She imagined that Jun Changshao had eyes, ears, a nose, and a big head. In short, he had human characteristics, but he didn't look like a human. When Shi Jingxian regained her vision and adapted to the light, she vaguely saw Jun Changshao's appearance. When she compared it with her imagination, she realized that there was a difference and was greatly disappointed. Then, her mood became depressed and she went berserk. To be honest, Shi Jingxian, who had never seen a human before, definitely had problems with her aesthetics. Our sect leader Jun was definitely not ugly. It was just that he didn't meet her expectations. Ugly, the system's words echoed in Jun Changshao's ears. It was like a sharp sword stabbing into his heart time and time again, causing him to break down from the pain. You can laugh at me. You can humiliate me. You can say that I'm weak. But you can't doubt my handsome appearance. If it's a sin, it's an unforgivable appearance. Hearing Jun Changshao's words, the system broke down. I've never seen such a shameless person. Sect leader Jun. Shi Jingxian asked weakly, are you okay? This woman didn't realize that because she saw his appearance, she was depressed and brought millions of tons of mental damage to sect leader Jun. Phew. Jun Changshao let out a long breath and said, I'm fine. Shi Jingxian smiled. Sect leader Jun, thank you for the pill. It allowed me to see the light. Although it was only for a moment, I was very happy. She looked very cute when she smiled. She also looked like an innocent girl who didn't know anything about the world. Jun Changshao thought to himself, she has an eye disease and a strange illness. The heavens are too unfair to her. Palace Master Shi. Jun Changshao said, since you can see the light, there's a possibility of your illness being cured. So, you have to be full of hope for the future and face every day happily. Since he knew that she would lose her rationality if she was depressed, he would definitely encourage her with inspirational chicken soup. Yes. Shi Jingxian smiled and said, I will. Although it was only a brief moment of light and she could only vaguely see the interior of the hall, seeing Jun Changshao was enough for her to remember him forever in her heart. Sect Master Jun, Shi Jingxian smiled and said, you didn't come to the ingenious flower palace just to deliver medicinal pills, right? Jun Changshao scratched his head and said, Palace Master Shi, my Iron Bones sect has run into some trouble recently. I hope your sect can lend a helping hand. What trouble? Shi Jingxian asked. Jun Changshao told him about Jinyang County's invasion and how they had offended 2 fourth-rate sections. What? Shi Jingxian asked in surprise. Sect Master Jun killed King Wu. Yes. Jun Changshao said, it's still 3. Shi Jingxian said in disbelief, Sect Master Jun, have you already broken through to the Martial King realm? Yes. That's not right. Shi Jingxian said, even if you really broke through, it's impossible for you to kill 3 martial kings in a row. This, Jun Changshao said, I broke through both sword and martial arts at the same time. His tone was very humble, but for some reason, when he said it, It exuded an extremely strong aura of pretentiousness. Ah! Shi Jingxian stood up and said in disbelief, Sect Master Jun is the sword and martial kings? I remember now. She said again, earlier, the elders said that there were signs of two martial kings descending in the sky. Could it be that Sect Master Jun is breaking through? Damn! The phenomenon caused by my breakthrough can be seen in the ingenious flower palace? If that's the case, my magnificent brilliance has already covered the entire falling star continent? Sigh. I wanted to keep a low profile and develop. Why did things go against my wishes? Since that's the case, I'll keep a high profile. Jun Changshao shook his head confidently and said coquettishly, that's right. The phenomenon in the sky just now was me breaking through. Wow! Shi Jingxian said, it's been thousands of years since the sword and martial kings appeared. Sect Master Jun is really a dragon among men for you to be able to do it. If these words came from City Lord Xia, Sect Master Jun would definitely not be surprised. However, when these words came from a cute girl, he immediately felt smug. Humans had to have some vanity. If one didn't care about anything and was unmoved by nothing, one would definitely be a saint. However, Shi Jingxian continued, Sect Master Jun killed the martial kings of two fourth-rate sections. They definitely won't let this matter rest. Therefore, I can only ask Palace Master Shi for help, Jun Changshao said. Shi Jingxian said, since the iron bone is in trouble, I naturally won't sit back and do nothing. This woman was also swift and decisive. She immediately went to the main hall and gathered all the elders, informing them of the matter. Zhangsun Fanghua and Ling Xingyue would definitely object. In their opinion, it was unwise to become enemies with two fourth-rate sects for the sake of an iron bone. Elders. Shi Jingxian, who was sitting at the head of the table, said, I have made up my mind. She was very strong and domineering. The elders were silent. They could only obey the palace master's orders and help the iron bone. How would they help? Not only did Shi Jingxian go personally, but she also brought thousands of disciples with her. Even the first elder and second elder had to accompany her. This lineup could be said to be luxurious. Sect Master Jun. Shi Jingxian said, I will set off now. I will reach the iron bone in half a month. Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said seriously, thank you for your help, Palace Master Shi. Jun will remember this kindness in his heart. If there is a need for my iron bone in the future, I will definitely go through water and tread on fire without hesitation. Shi Jingxian smiled and said, Sect Master Jun gave me pointers on martial arts on Mount Hua and traveled thousands of miles to deliver medicine. Now that your sect is in trouble, it is only right for me to help. Jun will take his leave first. I will wait for Palace Master Shi at the sect. Jun Changshao rode on the Hurricane Wolf King and returned to the Iron Bone first. Although Ingenious Flower Palace did not send Wu Huang, he was still very relieved. As long as Palace Master Shi stood on the city gate tower, she would definitely be a deterrent. Palace Master. After watching Jun Changshao leave, Zhangsun Fanghua could not help but say, if we go to help the Iron Bone, we will not only offend two fourth-rate sects, but also Xinyang County. The county chief of Xinyang County is a very ambitious person. It is not wise to offend him. Ling Xingyue said. Shi Jingxian said, this queen knows that the two elders are thinking for the sake of the sect, but have you ever thought that Jun Changshao is actually very ambitious? Zhangsun Fanghua said indifferently, even if the leader of a small sect is ambitious, how can he cause any waves? Shi Jingxian shook her head and said, I am not wrong. Jun Changshao and his iron bone will definitely have an important position in the falling star continent in the future. She did not see with her eyes, but with her heart. To be exact. She was betting that she was not wrong by going to help the iron bone. She was betting on the future of the Iron Bone sect. One day, when he and his sect had absolute strength and gained a foothold in the falling star continent, Ingenious Flower Palace would definitely benefit from it. From being unknown to becoming the most dazzling existence in the pugilistic world, he challenged the Sacred Spring sect, fought the evil faction of Huayang County, and now broke through to become the Sword and Martial Kings. The elders of Ingenious Flower Palace could pretend that they did not see these things, but as the palace master, Shi Jingxian had to see them. She could not let her emotions affect her decisions. She had to consider many aspects. Since Jun Changshao and his sect had great potential, she had to make friends with them. Therefore, Shi Jingxian went to help the Iron Bones sect not because she liked Sect Master Jun, but because she had her own considerations and plans. Sect Master Jun, on the way to the Iron Bones sect, Shi Jingxian said to herself, "Don't disappoint me." Chapter 476. Sect leader Jun had been invited to Miaohua Palace as she wished. When they arrived at Iron Bone, they would definitely be able to intimidate the Spirit Stream sect and Duanshui Pavilion. However, this was only limited to the strength of the sect. They still had to face Shenyang County. When the time came, they would send hundreds of thousands of soldiers. The 1,000 members of Wolf Rider Hall would definitely not be able to contend against them. What should I do? What should I do? On the way back to the sect, Jun Changshao was very conflicted. At this moment, he finally realized the importance of strength in numbers. If he also had a large army, he would not have to fear Shenyang County's army. The system said, the best solution is to negotiate. Jun Changshao said, as a Huaxia citizen, I can only accompany them to the end. I will not negotiate. The system said, what right does the host have to accompany them to the end with a 6th-grade county? Furthermore, it added, Qingyang City is only a small place. At worst, we can just change to another mountain and continue to develop the sect. There is no need to spend so much effort to protect it. Therefore, even if your words are very human, you are still just an emotionless machine, Jun Changshao said. When Iron Bone was in trouble, City Lord Xia led 3.6 million people and stood on the same side as him. This was his sworn brother. Now that he and his 3.6 million people were in trouble, he had to pack up and leave. How could he be worthy of the plaque in the main hall that was engraved with the words, Unyielding Iron Bone? Damn it! Jun Changshao said, at worst, I will not develop the sect. I will spend a lot of money to build a large army and fight against Shenyang County. No matter the price, he had to protect Qingyang City. This was because this was his promise to Xie Guangquan. A man's promise. Understood. The system said, the host is a real man. Don't talk nonsense. Jun Changshao said, hurry up and think of a way to fight against a 6th-grade Shenyang County. Didn't the host already think of a way? What the hell did I think of? The system said, didn't the host say that he would spend a lot of money to build a large army? What I meant was no big deal. I meant that we'll throw caution to the wind, Jun Changshao roared. The system said, host, if you insist on protecting Green Sun City, from the looks of the current situation, you can go all out. Fuck. Jun Changshao said, I asked you to come up with ideas, not to attack me. I support the host to go all out and spend a lot of money to recruit soldiers and buy horses to fight against the 6th-grade counties. The system said. Can you scram? I can't. If Jun Changshao could spend a lot of money to recruit soldiers and buy horses, he would definitely do it. However, the problem was that he only had 2 months. There was absolutely no hope of building a legion that could contend with Shenyang County in such a short period of time. Since we can invite Miaohua Palace, why don't we invite some of the bigger counties? Jun Changshao's mind was suddenly enlightened. It wasn't as if there weren't any counties that were on par with Shenyang County, or even stronger, in the southwestern Yangzhou. Who does the host know? The system asked. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up, and he said, I know Patriarch Long. His Dragon Sun City is not to be underestimated. The system said, find Patriarch Long and ask him to be the mediator. Maybe we can reach a compromise. Jun Changshao was speechless. Why does this guy always want me to ask for a compromise? The system said bluntly, because the host is too weak now. If you don't ask for a compromise, it will be very difficult for you to fight against these giants. This sentence was very realistic, but also very cruel. Although sect leader Jun was already a sword and martial king, the overall strength of the sect was still very weak. Damn it! Jun Changshao clenched his fists tightly and said hatefully, if I had a few more years to develop, I would have made everyone bow down to me. Iron Bone. Jun Changshao returned gloomily. Sect leader. Just as he sat down in the main hall, Li Qingyang hurried in and said, Junior sister has awakened the innate demonic body. Innate demonic body? Jun Changshao's face was full of surprise. Jiang Xia walked in and reported Yao Menjing's matter in full detail. So, after Jun Changshao heard this, he held his chin and said, the innate demonic body is very strong? Very strong. Jiang Ye said, people with this kind of physique who cultivate the demonic path may become a demon emperor in the future. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up and said, the little girl has such potential. This is great news for our Iron Bone. Good news? Jiang Ye's mouth twitched and said, Sect leader, demonic cultivators are like rats on the street in the falling star continent. Yao Menjing has the innate demonic body. If news of this spread out, it will definitely bring about a huge disaster. What do you mean? Jun Changshao asked. Jiang Ye hurriedly told him about the demon emperor from 10,000 years ago and the demon-slaying order in the Jianghu. After Jun Changshao heard this, he said, it seems to be very serious. Jiang Ye said, in the past 10,000 years, 8 people with the innate demonic body have awakened. In the end, all of them died without exception. Their families and forces were also destroyed. Are demonic cultivators so evil that they are hunted down by the whole continent? Jun Changshao asked. Jiang Ye shook his head and said, many demonic cultivators are like evil cultivators. They do whatever they want. The reason why they are hunted down is nothing more than to make some people feel insecure. Having lived in the demon fiend sect, he could say that he saw through the mystery. The most fundamental reason why demonic cultivators had fallen like this was that the first patriarch of the demon emperor sect could ignore the rules of heaven and earth and forcefully enter the emperor level. Naturally, the various forces would not tolerate someone breaking the balance and posing a threat to them. Therefore, they joined forces to destroy him and eliminate him forever. If demonic cultivators were the same as evil cultivators, cultivating special cultivation methods could allow them to grow quickly, but it was still within a controllable range, so they would not be destroyed. Jun Changshao frowned and said, since they are not evil people, it is a bit too much to want to kill them all. Jiang Ye said, Sect leader, I think for the sake of Iron Bone, let Yao Menjing focus on martial arts. Are you afraid that others will find out? Jun Changshao asked. Jiang Ye said, there is no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. Once the news that Yao Menjing has the innate demonic body spreads, my Iron Bone will definitely be destroyed 100 times. Moreover, he paused and said with a serious look, those who come to destroy my sect may be first-rate sects or martial emperors. Damn! Jun Changshao was shocked. Facing a 6th-class county and 2 4th-rate sects, he was ready to risk everything. Facing a first-rate sect and a martial emperor, he would definitely die. Where is Menjing now? In the room. Jun Changshao came to the inner courtyard and walked into Yao Menjing's room. The little girl was curled up in the corner with her head lowered. Sect leader, Yao Menjing gently raised her head, bit her lips, and said with red eyes, you. Are you going to drive me away? Jun Changshao said, why should I drive you away? Yao Menjing choked and said, I have awakened the innate demonic body. I am an inauspicious person. I will bring disaster to the sect. Who said that? Jun Changshao asked. Yao Menjing buried her head between her legs and said, I had a dream. In the dream, many bad people came to the sect. Senior brother and senior sister were all lying in a pool of blood. Sect leader was covered in injuries and stood in front of me to protect me. Those bad people said that I was a devil, that I was a demon. They told sect leader not to be stubborn and not to protect me. Otherwise, they would destroy Iron Bone. It was just a dream. Jun Changshao walked over and said gently, "Why take it so seriously?" He squatted down, raised his hand and put it on her little head, and said, "You are an iron bone disciple for a day, an iron bone disciple for a lifetime. As long as you are willing to stay here, I will not drive you away." Wu, Yao Menjing cried even more sadly and choked. In the dream, Sect leader also answered the bad people like this. He said that I am an iron bone disciple for a day, an iron bone disciple for a lifetime, and no one can hurt me. Chapter 477. After Yao Menjing awakened her innate demon body, she fell into a coma for a period of time and had many strange dreams. The dream that left the deepest impression on her was that many people came to Iron Bone, saying that they were the remnants of the demonic path, a disaster, and an ominous person. Yao Menjing was extremely scared. She hid behind the sect master, her hands trembling violently. Senior brothers and senior sisters stood in front of her to protect her. Even though those bad people were strong, they were not afraid at all. Menjing. The sect master turned his back to her and said, "Don't be afraid, this seat and your senior brothers are all here." In Yao Menjing's dream, sect master Jun was still so coquettish. This sentence was also full of magic, making Yao Menjing, who was originally afraid, gradually calm down. Later, the dream changed, and many senior brothers fell in a pool of blood. Although she did not witness the process, she could guess that they must have fought with the bad people. Yao Menjing raised her head with difficulty and found that the sect master was also injured, covered in blood, but still standing in front of her. At that moment, her heart was in pain, and tears flowed out uncontrollably. Jun Changshao. On the opposite side, an old man with a strong aura said in a deep voice, "Hand over the remnants of the demonic path behind you, and we can let your iron bone go." Jun Changshao's eyes became incomparably cold, and said, "This seat still has the same words, once a disciple of iron bone for a day, a disciple of iron bone for a lifetime, no one can hurt her." Although it was just a dream, the sect master's words were deeply engraved in Yao Menjing's heart. Even after waking up, she did not forget. Speaking of which, with our sect master Jun's personality, if someone really came to kill his disciple, even if he was seriously injured, it was very possible that he would fight to the end. Fortunately, it was just a dream. Jun Changshao rubbed Yao Menjing's little head and said with a smile, "Little girl, don't think too much, let Lu Wancher make you a delicious meal later." He got up and left. After returning to the main hall, he gathered Jiangye and the others and said, "No one is to spread the news about Yao Menjing's innate demon body." Yes. The disciples received the order. Li Luoqiu asked, "Sect Master, did you gain anything from your trip to Miaohua Palace?" "Palace Master, she will bring people here soon." Tisk tsk. Li Luoqiu smiled and said, "Sect leader is really charming. You can even invite a fourth-rate sect." Jun Chang smiled and said, "How could I not be charming enough to make Hall Master Li willingly join us?" Right. He returned to the topic at hand and asked, "What has Shenyang County been up to recently?" When it came to serious matters, Li Luoqiu became serious and said, "Shenyang County has been mobilizing its troops recently. It seems that they plan to attack other counties." Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and said, "We just conquered Huayang and Heian County, and now there's another movement. This Shenyang County is really restless." Shuai said, "Judging from the enemy's attack route, they want to take all the counties in the southwest region and establish a larger county. The other counties just sit there and do nothing, allowing Shenyang County to expand their territory?" Jun Changshao asked. Shuai said, "Shenyang County has already taken control of several important military bases. Even if the other counties have objections, they won't be able to pose a substantial threat." Jun Changshao rubbed his temples and said, "This is really a big problem. If it isn't solved, I won't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Go. Call Xiang over." Before long, Long Xiang entered the main hall. When he learned that the sect master wanted to go to Longyang City to ask for help, he shook his head and said, "Sect master, Longyang City is only a city. It won't participate in worldly wars. Not even with money. No. Jun Changshao was speechless. Forget it, forget it. I'll just take it one step at a time. Jun Changshao threw away all his worries and focused on cultivation. Yao Menjiang, who had awakened her innate demonic body, also began to comprehend body metamorphose scripture. The senior brothers also did their best to teach her martial arts so that she could quickly comprehend this kind of body-strengthening mantra. As for the evil sect's martial arts, if she could cultivate it, then cultivate it. If she couldn't, then don't force it. As long as the disciple's heart was with the sect, as long as she didn't do anything unforgivable, Jun Changshao didn't care if she cultivated the evil path or the righteous path. Jiangye had cultivated the evil sect's martial arts before, so he could also give Yao Menjiang some pointers. In short, this little lowly, who had awakened her innate demonic body, was doted on like a pearl in the palm of iron bone. On the other hand, our pitiful last disciple He Wudi was completely unloved by his grandmother. He relied on himself to cultivate and would occasionally be greeted by a happy football. However, this guy's aptitude was really strong. After cultivating for the 4th time, he broke through to martial disciple in just a few days. His speed was getting faster and faster. After comprehending body metamorphose scripture, He Wudi began to cultivate Iron Bone's various martial arts. He secretly exclaimed, "These martial arts look very ordinary, but they are all extraordinary." As expected of the birthplace of the 7 profound sage, Yi Xingchen had always believed that Jun Changshao came from the upper realm. He Wudi believed that Iron Bone was related to the 7 profound sage. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the other inner sect disciples relied on a large number of spirit stones and spirit gathering arrays to enter Wuzong from 1st grade to 4th grade. The improvement was quite obvious. The outer sect disciples at the martial master level progressed even faster. For example, Li Tiantian, Sima Zhongda, and the others. Although their aptitude wasn't high, they relied on a large number of resources to reach the peak of martial master. Because they had already adapted to the 3rd floor of the training tower and had been refining the spirit energy in their dantian, breaking through Wuzong would be easier than Li Qingyang and the others. The predecessor planted the tree, and the successor reaped the shade. The Iron Bone's various measures were gradually perfected. The disciples who joined later would definitely cultivate faster than the disciples who joined earlier. In this half a month, He Wudi also began to enter the molding room to mold his body. The first time, he was tortured for a few hours and sat on the stairs with no desire to live. The next day, he felt refreshed all over and began his self-torture journey tirelessly. As for the other disciple, Tao Yuan, he had also integrated into the Iron Bone. Other than cultivating, he would discuss the art of war with Shui Rengui and was deeply impressed. Hall Master Shui. He cupped his hands and said, "If you lead an army in southwest Yangzhou, no one will be able to defeat you." The disciples all made progress, but sect leader Jun frowned. This was because he had been cultivating for the past half a month. He had also consumed a lot of spirit stones and pills, but his realm still hadn't broken through. The system said, the host is a sword and martial king, and there are 2 spirit cores in his dantian. It's several times harder for him to break through compared to a normal martial king. Damn! Jun Changshao was speechless. This is a double-edged sword. Sect leader. Li Qingyang hurriedly reported, "The palace master of Miaohua Palace has arrived with the disciples." Is that so? Jun Changshao personally went out to welcome them. He was about to enthusiastically shake hands with Shi Jingxian to show his friendliness, but when he saw Changsun Fanghua and Ling Xingyue's cold faces, he dismissed the thought and smiled. "Palace Master Shi, please come in." Chapter 478. Shi Jingxian brought 2,000 disciples and 4 elders who were martial kings. It was a luxurious lineup. It was a feast for the eyes of the male Iron Bone disciples. After all, they were all beautiful women. Senior brother, the disciples of Miaohua Palace are so beautiful. It would be great if our Iron Bone had so many girls. The Iron Bone disciples gathered together and discussed in low voices. If the young masters waiting at the foot of the mountain knew that the Iron Bone disciples could admire the female disciples of Miaohua Palace up close, they would be so envious that they would vomit blood. Palace Master Shi. In the main hall, Jun Changshao said, Jun has ordered the disciples to prepare food and wine to welcome your esteemed sect. Thank you, Sect Master Jun, Shi Jingxian said with a smile. She was wearing a sky-blue gauze dress today. After carefully dressing up, she looked even more beautiful. Jun Changshao said, if Shenyang County invades, they will definitely attack Qingyang City. After dinner, please follow me to Qingyang City, Palace Master Shi. He would never leave Miaohua Palace in the sect. After all, there were secrets that should not be known. Shi Jingxian said. Before long, the fragrant dishes were prepared. She led the elders to the cafeteria. The eyes of the female Iron Bone disciples who had been here earlier were shining. They had eaten Lu Wancher's dishes once, and the taste was still lingering in their minds. Zhangsun Fanghua and the others kept their heads up, looking cold and aloof. After they were seated, some disciples picked up their chopsticks anxiously. Zhangsun Fanghua reprimanded softly, how many days have you not eaten? A female disciple whispered, Grand Elder, the dishes made by the Iron Bone chef are simply delicacies. Delicacies? Zhangsun Fanghua snorted coldly. As an old woman who had lived for hundreds of years, what kind of delicacies had she not eaten? She picked up her chopsticks and took a bite. As a sharp-tongued person, the great elder had already thought of a lot of vicious comments in his heart. Whoosh! Whoosh! The disciples of Miaohua Palace raised their chopsticks. Zhangsun Fanghua didn't reprimand her, because right now, she was slowly savoring the food in her mouth, her expression changing again and again. She had eaten many delicacies, but after swallowing this dish, she concluded that what she had eaten before were all radishes and cabbages. The lines that they had thought of were washed away by the delicious food and were replaced with compliments. Food was the most important thing for the people. Unless one was an expert who could achieve inedia, it would be very difficult to resist the delicious taste on the tip of the tongue. How is it? Ling Xingyue said. Zhangsun Fanghua suppressed the impact of the food and said, you can try it. Ling Xingyue raised her chopsticks and ate a mouthful of food. Her beautiful face was instantly filled with shock. Clearly, she was shocked by Lu Wancher's food. Everyone. Jun Changshao said with a smile, sorry for making a fool of myself in front of you. The corners of Zhangsun Fanghua and the others' mouths twitched. Even this kind of delicacy can be described as plain tea, what can we eat? Just as Ling Xingyue picked up a mouthful of food and was about to eat it, she caught sight of Elder Wei, who had just walked in through the door. Whoosh! She jumped up and slammed her chopsticks on the table. Her beautiful eyes flickered with anger as she said, Wei Qingfeng. Her voice was very loud and alarmed everyone. Jun Changshao looked up and saw Ling Xingyue staring at Elder Wei. He couldn't help but think, is that Elder Wei's name? He had joined the sect for a while, but he didn't even know his name. He was really incompetent as the sect master. Elder Wei looked at Ling Xingyue in surprise. After a while, he smiled gently and said, so you've joined Miaohua Palace. Elder Wei. Jun Changshao transmitted his voice. You know this woman? Yes. Elder Wei replied, she's my 35th ex-lover. Ex-lover? 35th. Sect Master Jun was dumbfounded. Elder Wei. You've given me 35 bowls of dog food when I'm caught off guard. Ling Xingyue's beautiful eyes were still filled with anger, but there was also a trace of undetectable resentment. This complicated gaze was enough to prove that she and Elder Wei had an unforgettable love story. Wei Qingfeng. She said coldly, facts have proven that I, Ling Xingyue, can still live a good life without you. This is not the place to talk, Elder Wei said. What? Ling Xingyue's expression was cold as she said, are you afraid that others will find out that you, a man, have broken your promise?" Elder Wei fell silent. "What a joke!" Ling Xingyue said self-deprecatingly, "I've been bewitched by a heartless man like you for decades just because you said, 'If you bloom, a cool breeze will come.' If you bloom, a cool breeze will come." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched as he imagined a scene. It was a picturesque peach forest. The young Elder Wei stood in front of the young Ling Xingyue, holding a peach branch in his hand. He said in an extremely gentle voice, "Little sister Xingyue, if you bloom, a cool breeze will come." Oh my, oh my. He's so fucking hipster, so fucking mushy. Elder Wei said bitterly, "Xingyue, do you still hate me that much?" "I hate you to the core." Ling Xingyue gritted her teeth, and the hatred in her beautiful eyes intensified. Elder Wei didn't say anything. He turned around and walked out of the cafeteria. How could Ling Xingyue let this go? She didn't even eat the delicious food and chased after him. When the two of them left, a disciple of Ingenious Flower Palace whispered, "Grand Elder, is this old man the man who hurt the second elder the most?" Zhang Sun Fanghua said coldly, "He's a flirtatious man who deceived the second elder of her feelings for decades." At this point, she glanced at Jun Changxiao and said, "You even took in such a person. They're just jackals of the same tribe." Sect leader Jun was speechless. Elder Wei's flirtatious bed. Why is she looking at me? Ever since I transmigrated to the other world, although I have a little anticipation for the relationship between a man and a woman, I have always kept myself clean. The readers are so anxious that they ask who the female lead is every day. How can they be jackals of the same tribe? However, but then again, Elder Wei was a veteran in the field of love. He had more than 30 ex-girlfriends alone. As a senior bachelor, he had to find an opportunity to ask for advice. "Come, come." Jun Changxiao called out, "Don't just stand there. Everyone, eat, eat." As he spoke, he released his spiritual senses and locked onto Elder Wei and Ling Xingyue. He watched the two of them stop in the Lotus Pond Pavilion. As expected of an expert in love. Jun Changxiao inwardly said, "It looks like a random place, but it's actually so suitable for romance." He learned it, he learned it. Xingyue. Elder Wei stopped and looked at the lotus pond in front of him. He sighed and said, "Actually, I have my own difficulties." "Difficulties?" Ling Xingyue sneered. "Your difficulties are probably because you have too many women, right?" Elder Wei looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle and said sadly, "I, Wei Qingfeng, am destined to drift with the wind for the rest of my life. I can't give you stability or safety, so I can only choose to leave, even if I have to violate the oath between us." He dumped her and still made it sound so poetic. He wasn't an expert in love, but a saint in love. "You're drifting with the wind now. If I bloom, the wind will come," Ling Xingyue said coldly. Hearing this, Jun Changxiao almost burst out laughing. Sigh. Elder Wei shook his head and said, "Xingyue, I thought you would understand me," but in the end, he gently clutched his chest and said, "My heart hurts so much." Ling Xingyue said with a cold face, "Have you ever understood me? Have you ever known how painful it was for me to wait for you for all those years?" Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Wasn't it embarrassing to say such mushy lines that only appeared in romance dramas? So, the system said, the host deserves to be single forever. Crack, that was the sound of a broken heart. Chapter 479. Elder Wei and Ling Xingyue were chatting by the lotus pond while sect leader Jun released his spiritual senses to eavesdrop. He wasn't eavesdropping, but learning. As the saying went, there was bound to be someone to learn from. In terms of relationships, Jun Changxiao was like a blank piece of paper. There were too many things that he needed to consult Elder Wei about. However, when he heard those mushy words, he retreated in defeat. He couldn't learn, he couldn't learn. Sect leader Jun retracted his spiritual senses and said, "Palace Master Shi, eat more." Elder Wei's heart ached. "You told her to eat more." In comparison, the system's words made sense. She deserved to be single forever. Yes. Shi Jingxian nodded lightly and slowly tasted the food. Although the food was delicious, she maintained the demeanor of a sect leader. The disciples of Miaohua Palace were the same. At this moment, they really wanted to wolf down all the delicacies, but because they were women, they had to maintain their composure and not let others laugh at them. After the meal, Elder Wei and Ling Xingyue were still chatting by the pond. However, the atmosphere had eased a lot. Jun Changshao said in admiration, "Second Elder wanted to kill someone just now, but she can calm down now. Elder Wei must have coaxed her a lot." Sect leader Jun, Shi Jingxian said, "When are we going to Qingyang City?" "Let's go now," Jun Changshao said. After the meal, wouldn't it be better to find a place with a good environment to chat with others? There was really no hope. Jun Changshao brought Shi Jingxian and the disciples of Miaohua Palace to Qingyang City. Ling Xingyue stayed in Iron Bone for the time being. It seemed like she wanted to completely resolve her feelings of many years. So many beautiful women in their prime flooded into Qingyang City, instantly bringing a huge visual impact to the citizens of the city. When Xie Guangquan learned that the person who came was the palace master of Miaohua Palace, he hurriedly welcomed her personally and was very enthusiastic. Of course. He also admired sect leader Jun in his heart. He could even invite a fourth-rate sect and let them bring so many disciples and upper echelons. How powerful was he? Or could it be that sect master Jun and palace master Shi have already fallen in love? After settling Shi Jingxian and the group of disciples, Xie Guangquan smiled and cupped his hands. "Sect master Jun, when will this Xie be able to attend your wedding?" "Wedding banquet?" Jun Changshao was at a loss. Xie Guangquan smiled and said, "You even managed to invite the palace master of Miaohua Palace. I'm afraid your relationship is only lacking a wedding. Don't spout nonsense." Jun Changshao said, "Palatial master Shi and I are just friends." Xie Guangquan's face showed an "I understand" expression, and then he smiled and said, "Understood, understood." Jun Changshao knew that he had misunderstood, but he was too lazy to explain. He then said goodbye and returned to Iron Bone. There was still more than a month left before the battle exemption token expired. He wanted to take this opportunity to cultivate and strive to break through to rank 2. Even though he was a Sword King and Martial King, and he had 2 spirit cores, which made his cultivation progress extremely slow, as long as he could make substantial improvements, his battle prowess would soar. Sect Master Jun had just returned to the sect when Ling Xingyu left with red eyes. The anger around her had completely dissipated. He went back and forth to Qingyang City after a meal. Elder Wei solved his relationship problems just like that. He was indeed an expert. Jun Changshao hurried to the herb garden. Elder Wei was currently sitting in a gazebo, looking at the sky with a worried expression and sighing. "Elder Wei." Jun Changshao walked over and said, "Are you all right?" Sigh. Elder Wei sighed and said, "I've owed too much in my life. It was probably romantic debt." "Sect Master." Elder Wei said, "What's the matter?" Jun Changshao sat down and said seriously, "I want to discuss the art of picking up girls with Elder Wei." "Picking up girls?" It's the art of picking up girls." "Picking up girls?" "Discussing the relationship between men and women." Elder Wei understood and shook his head. "The most painful thing in this world is the relationship between men and women. Once you fall into it, you will be consigned to eternal damnation. What's the point of discussing it? If I can be like Elder Wei and have so many old lovers, I'm willing to try no matter how painful it is," Sect Master Jun said seriously. Elder Wei's mouth twitched. "Sect Master, you still have to develop the sect. You must not be infatuated with the relationship between men and women." "Fuck. Am I going to be lonely for the rest of my life as a sect master? Also," Elder Wei continued, "if you don't handle matters of the heart well, there will be endless trouble in the future." This was definitely the most valuable experience for someone who had experienced it. Seeing how serious he was, Sect Master June was a little afraid, so he gave up on asking about the art of picking up girls and went back to the topic at hand. He asked about the recent medicinal herbs. Many of the medicinal herbs for the Chi Gathering Pill and Martial Master Pill had been refined. With the continuous supply of heaven and earth attributes, the spiritual energy contained in the medicinal herbs was also stronger than the previous batch. Sect Master Elder Wei stood in an open space outside the herb garden and said, I plan to continue expanding the herb garden and plant more medicinal herbs. Okay. Jun Changshao approved. During this period of time, Sun Bukong and the other members of the medicinal hall had already gained a lot of experience under Elder Wei's meticulous guidance. There was no problem in maintaining a larger herb garden together. Of course. Sect Master Jun wouldn't always plant the medicinal herbs needed for the Chi Gathering Pill and Martial Master Pill. After the expansion, he would plant more varieties in preparation for the future. After returning from the herb garden, Jun Changshao first cultivated in the spirit gathering array for 4 hours, then cultivated on the first, second, and third floors of the training pagoda for 2 hours. Night fell. He returned to the study and found little Long Long curled up in its nest, already asleep. It can't be hibernating again, right? Jun Changshao muttered as he opened the intermediate store. He hadn't looked at the system store for a while. He didn't finish looking at it after it refreshed last time. His contribution points had overflowed, but he only hurriedly bought a bottle of beginner-grade spiritual medicine. Is there anything else good? Jun Changshao continued to look, but he was disappointed. There was nothing worth buying. There are still more than 4,000 contribution points. Let's try refreshing again. As he said that, he fiercely pulled down. Ding! Sect contribution points, 4544500. The items in the store were replaced once again. Jun Changshao looked at them seriously until he saw the second row of items and jumped up from his seat. Under normal circumstances, anything that could make him so excited most likely had something to do with guns. However, it wasn't a gun, it was a cannon. It was called Magic Modified Schneider 1897 75mm Field Cannon. Jun Changshao exclaimed, there really is a cannon. He clicked on the detailed introduction item, Magic Modified Field Cannon. Introduction, Type 1897 75mm Field Cannon, the world's first cannon equipped with a recoil device. It shone brilliantly in the First World War and was later magically modified to be suitable for the world of high martial arts. Advantages: extremely long range, extremely powerful. Disadvantages: extremely expensive crystal nucleus, and requires at least a high-grade crystal nucleus. Price: 2,000 contribution points. Damn it! After seeing the introduction, Jun Changshao exclaimed, it's real, an Italian cannon. However, 2,000 contribution points, that's way too expensive. The system said, if you think it's too expensive, the host can choose not to buy it. How could he not buy it? Jinyang County was about to kill their way over. With this kind of field cannon in the city, once it was fired, it would definitely blow up the people on the other side, causing their scalp to go numb. Buy! Buy! Chapter 480. Ding! The host has spent 2,000 contribution points and obtained Magic Modified Field Cannon X1. It has been transferred into the spatial ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 2544500. With a thought, Jun Changshao summoned the field cannons he had bought. The muzzle was very long and had 2 wheels. The extended tail was tightly attached to the ground, which was obviously used to reduce the recoil. The tail was attached to the ground, which should be used to reduce the recoil. The design of this magic modified field cannon was exactly the same as the ones in Italy in the TV series. At the bottom of the cannon, there was a fist-sized groove, which should be the place to gather the cannonballs. Swish! Jun Changshao took out a high-grade crystal core and pulled the energy into the groove. The gray cannonball icon began to light up. However, after all the energy was transferred, only 1/3 of the cannonball icon lit up. Damn! Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. To gather one cannonball, do I need 3? The greater the power, the greater the consumption. The system said. Okay. Jun Changxiao said, I hope it won't disappoint me. He took out 2 more crystal cores and transferred them all in. Only then did he successfully charge 1 cannonball. There were 2 cannonball icons on the cannon, which meant that it could hold 2 cannonballs. Jun Changxiao was eager to test the power, so he did not charge the second cannonball. Instead, he called Xiao Ziji and the others and directly pushed it to the back of the mountain. As long as they bought a new gun, they would come here to test it. It was like a shooting range. Sect Master. Xiao Ziji said in surprise, is this a gun? Oh my god. Su Xiaoma also came. He walked around the field cannon and said in surprise, the muzzle is so big, the power must be terrifying. After Jun Changxiao checked it, he locked on to the small mountain in the distance and clapped his hands. You will know when you fire it. Can this disciple do it? Su Xiaoma's eyes suddenly became hot. Yes. Jun Changxiao said, go. Su Xiaoma walked over, beaming with joy. He stood in front of the field cannon and asked, Sect leader, how do I use it? Jun Changxiao said, press the red button. When he said this, he had already retreated several hundred meters away. As for Xiao Ziji, who had experienced being thrown into trees many times, he also avoided it far away. Su Xiaoma did not realize that he was completely focused on the field cannon. He rubbed his hands and pressed the red button that was more eye-catching. Boom! The peaceful iron bone suddenly emitted a loud boom, causing the ground and buildings to tremble. Because the sound was too loud, the birds in the distance were shocked and fell to the ground. The animals were also frightened and ran around in fear. What's going on? The disciples who heard the buzzing sound looked at the back of the mountain in shock. They saw billowing white smoke rising in the distance and gradually converging into a mushroom shape. Go! Let's go take a look. Everyone hurriedly rushed to the back of the mountain. As soon as they entered, they saw the field cannons spewing out thick smoke. The sect leader and senior brother Xiao stood in the distance. The two of them were dumbfounded. Because they were too close, their ears were buzzing from the sound of the cannons. Someone exclaimed, Senior brother Su fell. Su Xiaoma fell on the grass beside the field cannon. White foam was coming out of his mouth, and his body was twitching violently. He was beaming with joy just now, but now he was like a bear. The contrast was too great. Of course. Su Xiaoma was not shaken by the recoil, but by the sound of the cannons. It was very tragic. Quick! Quick! Carry him to the medicine hall for emergency treatment. The disciples rushed forward like a swarm of bees, carried Su Xiaoma and ran towards the medicine hall. Sect leader. Li Qingyang's mouth twitched. What happened to junior brother Su? Jun Changxiao, who had just adapted to the sound of the cannons, tilted his ears and shouted, What did you say? This was a temporary loss of hearing due to the vibrations. It was not just him. Xiao Ziji also lost his hearing. This situation lasted for more than half a day. The disciples had to shout when they talked to the two of them. Of course, the power of the field cannon was still very terrifying. The mountain 40 li away was not only blown to pieces, but it also created a circular crater that was hundreds of zhang wide. How was this a cannon? It was almost comparable to a missile. After Jun Changxiao's ears recovered, he stood at the edge of the crater and grinned. Why should I be afraid of Xinjiang County? He had absolute confidence that if he fired the cannon, it would definitely scare the army of Xinjiang County to the point of wetting their pants. The field cannon was very powerful, but its weakness was also obvious. It was too loud. If it was set up in the city, the sound of the cannon could make the people without cultivation vomit blood. It can be used to deter the enemy. Unless it is absolutely necessary, it is better not to use it. Jun Changxiao murmured. With the powerful field cannon, he was originally worried about how to face sect leader Jun of Xinjiang County. However, he immediately relaxed. With the Italian cannon in hand, you guys are coming. After a routine cultivation, sect leader Jun returned to the study and found that the little dragon was still sleeping. This made him certain that the little fellow had hibernated for the second time. I wonder what changes it will undergo when it wakes up. After the first hibernation, the little dragon's body was much bigger. It could even activate its battle form and directly oppress the rank 2 Martial King Jiangya. Jun Changshao was looking forward to the little dragon's second awakening. Shwa! He opened the shop again. Jun Changshao continued to flip through the book. His luck this time wasn't too good. The only useful item was the Italian cannon. There were no martial techniques, equipment, or recipes. The system was speechless. A powerful field cannon that can help the host fight the army of Xinjiang County head-on is called bad luck? Jun Changshao ignored it and continued browsing. When he saw the last item, his eyes lit up. It was a very ordinary sackcloth bag with the words Weapon Dispelling Qianquan Bag written on it. He clicked on the description. Item, Weapon Dispelling Qianquan Bag. Description, a special summoning treasure. There are spirit beans in it. After using it, one can transform the beans into soldiers. Advantage, it can store 100,000 spirit beans. Not only can it transform into soldiers, but it can also be boiled, stewed, or fried. It tastes very good. Disadvantage, the spirit beans can transform into soldiers. If the user dies, there will be one less spirit bean used. Price, 1,000 contribution points. Grade, Saint rank, high. Jun Changshao said in surprise, this seems pretty good too. It's not just good. The system said, it's practically tailor-made for the host's current dangerous situation. Jun Changshao's biggest problem now was Xinjiang County, and the 2 fourth-rate sections Shi Jingxian could deal with the sects with her help, but they couldn't fight against a colossus like Xinjiang County. Now that he had the field cannon and the weapon dispelling Qianquan bag, he could definitely use them to wrestle with Xinjiang County. As for the various ways to eat spirit beans in the description, unless one's brain was kicked by a donkey, they would definitely not try them. Buy. Sect leader Jun spent 1,000 contribution points to buy the weapon dispelling Qianquan bag. Then, he opened the shop and spent 500 contribution points to buy 5 AK-47s that were on cooldown. It was very difficult for guns to cause substantial damage to high-level experts, but if the disciples were equipped with them, they would be very effective against the army of Xinjiang County. I have no more contribution points. Looking at the remaining 1,000 points, Sect leader Jun suddenly felt a sense of insecurity. Chapter 481. After buying Jia Bing's Qianquan bag, Jun Changshao took it out. This thing was similar to a numbing bag, but there was a space inside it. It was similar to a spatial item and stored many fingernail-sized spirit beans. Can it be eaten? He took out one and held it in his hand. Jun Changshao's eyes flashed with surprise as he sensed the faint spiritual energy that permeated the air. There were only 100,000 spirit beans. If there were any casualties, every spirit bean used would be one less spirit bean. Sect leader Jun would definitely not be willing to eat them. The system said, maybe it has a miraculous effect. Jun Changshao rolled his eyes and said, if you want to use it, you have to use it on the blade. It's a waste to eat it. How can it be used on the blade? In his opinion, if the Xinjiang County led an army, he would use the beans to create soldiers and fight them to the end. However, how powerful would the soldiers be if they were made from beans? Jun Changshao went to the training ground of the Wolf Rider Hall. He stood on the mountain peak and took out Jia Bing's Qianquan bag. What is the sect leader doing? The members of the Wolf Rider Hall who appeared on the training ground looked up with puzzled faces. Is he here to check on our training? Everyone, you must perform well. Don't disappoint the sect leader. Okay. Everyone shouted in unison, their eyes shining with excitement. During the period when the battle exemption card was in effect, they had persisted in cultivating and training. Not only had their realms increased, but their coordination had also become more and more perfect. Now, the 1,000 Wolf Riders had an average cultivation of a 7th grade martial master. There was still a month before the battle exemption card expired. At this speed, they could reach the 9th grade martial master level. They could break through so quickly because Jun Changshao gave them a lot of chi gathering pills and natural spirit stones. In short, in order to face the upcoming storm, they had to use all their resources to create the strongest Wolf Rider Hall. Magic beans to create soldiers. Jun Changshao stood on the mountain peak and shouted. Then, he used his mind to control Jia Bing's Qianquan bag. With a wave of his hand, spirit beans flew out. What is that? The members of the Wolf Rider Hall were dumbfounded. Bang! 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 The spirit beans made contact with the ground, producing a light sound. Thick white smoke rose and covered the area. Whoosh, a cool breeze blew, and the smoke dissipated. The members of the Wolf Rider Hall widened their eyes. Tens of thousands of soldiers wearing bright white armor and holding long weapons appeared out of thin air. Their figures were straight and their gazes were cold. They gave off the feeling of divine soldiers and heavenly generals. Jun Changshao was stunned. The martial Dao aura emitted by the soldiers transformed from spiritual beings was actually at the martial master level. The most coquettish thing. Sect leader Jun could feel that he could control it as he pleased. Turn! He muttered in his heart. The 10,000 soldiers standing below turned around in unison and faced the mountain he was on. Their actions were so synchronized that they looked like guards of honor who had undergone strict training. Shui Rengui walked over and asked in surprise, Sect leader, where did these soldiers come from? Jun Changshao did not explain. Instead, he smiled and said, it's all right, right? Very strong. Shui Rengui said seriously. Very strong was not referring to the cultivation of the soldiers, but from the way they stood and moved, it was obvious that they had received very professional training. Come. Jun Changshao said heroically, you command the Wolf Rider Hall, and I command these soldiers. Let's have a military exercise. And Shui Rengui nodded. On the training ground. 1,000 Wolf Riders stood in the west, while 10,000 spiritual being soldiers stood in the east. The two sides were facing each other. Shua! Shui Rengui waved the war flag. Zhong Yi shouted and led the members to charge over on the hurricane wolves. These 2 months of training were indeed remarkable. The strength of the Wolf Riders was definitely much stronger than before. If they were to fight with the Tiger Army commanded by Tao Yuan again, let alone 30,000, even 50,000 would be easily crushed. Attack! With a thought, Jun Changshao issued an order. Ta! 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 Under the control of the 10,000 spiritual being soldiers, they all held spears and strode forward. During the process, they changed continuously and finally formed an arc-shaped square formation. This! Shui Rengui was dumbfounded. A team of 10,000 people could change frequently and finally arrange a formation suitable for fighting against cavalry. This was incredible. If it were him, he would definitely not be able to do it. No matter how perfect the cooperation was, it would take time to complete. There would be continuous changes during the movement and it was easy to make mistakes, causing the formation to become messy. Jun Changshao could do something that a 5-star general could not do. This was because although the 10,000 spiritual being soldiers seemed to be humans, they were in fact marionettes. As long as he had a thought, they would strictly execute the next action. Standing on the mountain peak and looking down, not only could he perfectly control the 10,000 soldiers, but he could also make the most timely arrangements according to the enemy's situation. Shui Rengui had to use the war flag to coordinate the overall situation. On the other hand, Jun Changshao seemed to be playing a strategy game. He could control the soldiers with a click of the mouse. There was no comparison at all. Shush! Shush! Zhong Yi led the members and charged over. They did not use weapons. Instead, they used self-slash, forming dense crescent-shaped flowing lights. As this was a military exercise, they did not need to use their true abilities and their powers were suppressed. However, thousands of flowing lights blasted the spiritual being soldiers who were moving forward. There were only chaotic sounds and it could not stop them from moving forward. It felt as if they were an iron bastion. Jun Changshao said in surprise, "Is their defense that high?" These soldiers could move according to his thoughts. Could they use martial arts? At the thought of this, he quickly evolved the self-slash movement in his sea of consciousness. Shush! Shush! The 10,000 soldiers put away their weapons. Under the command of their master, they raised their left hands and used self-slashes. "Oh no!" Zhongyi shouted, "Put up the shields." Shush! Shush! The wolf riders lifted their iron shields and instantly endured the bombardment of tens of thousands of self-slashes. For a moment, the spiritual force of the training ground was overflowing and dust was flying. The spiritual being soldiers were only martial masters. The self-slash was not very powerful and it did not affect the members of the Wolf Rider Hall. However, this made Jun Changshao overjoyed. Under his control, they could use martial arts. They could use martial arts. They were not spiritual being soldiers. They were simply his doppelgangers. The system said, the host can control the spiritual being soldiers at will. It is not an exaggeration to say that they are doppelgangers. Ha ha ha. Jun Changshao raised his head and laughed. He could control them at will and use all kinds of martial arts. If he were to go to the battlefield, he would not be afraid of Xinjiang County. Not to mention, there were still 90,000 spiritual beings in Jie Bing's Qiankuan pouch. If these spiritual being soldiers were to line up outside Qingyang City, they would not be afraid even if they were to face hundreds of thousands of enemy troops. Suppressing his excitement, Sect leader Jun continued to control the spiritual being soldiers to fight with the Wolf Riders. Because of their strong defense and the ability to use martial arts, they were able to suppress the Wolf Riders in a head-on confrontation. This battle lasted for an hour. Zhongyi and the members of the Wolf Rider Hall were extremely depressed. The spiritual being soldiers also knew the martial arts that they knew. Moreover, they had the advantage in numbers. They did not have any advantage at all. The most shocked person was Tao Yuan, who was watching the battle from afar. He had seen the strength of the Wolf Rider Hall. However, he never expected that there would be such an elite division of 10,000 people in the sect. If the county chief intends to attack Qingyang County, it will be difficult for us to win if Iron Bones joins the battle. Tao Yuan thought to himself. At this moment, he was praying in his heart that Xinjiang County did not intend to swallow Qingyang County. Otherwise, as a disciple of the sect and a general of the county, he would be in a difficult position. Unfortunately, Tao Yuan, who had lost his memory, did not know that Xinjiang County had already planned to swallow Qingyang County. Moreover, he had sent an army to fight. Chapter 482. Sect Master. Shui Rengui exclaimed, "These soldiers are like heavenly soldiers." Jun Changshao said, "If we have more soldiers, what are our chances of winning against Xinjiang County? If we have about 100,000 well-trained soldiers, we might not be able to fight Xinjiang County head-on, but we can definitely defend Qingyang City." Shui Rengui said seriously. "Is that so?" Jun Changshao laughed. The soldiers transformed from spirit beings could be controlled at will and could even use martial techniques. They were definitely very powerful and gave him more confidence to fight Xinjiang County head-on. Continue to train the Wolf Rider Hall. Don't slack off. Jun Changshao ordered. Yes. Shui Rengui was very puzzled. Tao Yuan was captured and Iron Bone joined. Why was there no movement from Xinjiang County? He didn't know that it was because of the battle exemption token. After returning to the sect, Sect Master Jun continued to cultivate. He had to break through to second-grade sword and martial king within a month. At this moment, he was not worried at all, nor was he conflicted at all. He was even looking forward to Xinjiang County leading the army and killing them. He wanted to show them what a real elite army was. 1 month later, the battle exemption token lost its effect. Xinjiang County gradually recovered their paused memories. Strange. In the secret chamber of the Spirit Stream Sect, Wu Huang, who had just returned, was puzzled. Why am I in the sect? When the chaotic memories gradually came back to him, he suddenly remembered that he was ordered by the Patriarch to go to Qingyang County and find the murderer of Zhuang Yong. However, when he used the power of heaven and earth to form a giant hand and was about to kill him, a stream of light came down from the sky. Then, the more Wu Huang thought about it, the clearer it became. The more he thought about it, the more his hair stood on end. At that time, the power that came down was very terrifying. It was so terrifying that he was like a weak ant. When He Wudi appeared from the void, his cultivation was still rapidly degenerating. Even so, it was still not something a martial king of the falling star continent could contend against. This Spirit Stream Sect expert should be glad that when the other party fell, his cultivation had greatly degenerated. Otherwise, he would have definitely died on the spot. That looks like a person. Could it be the reinforcements that Guy invited? Or perhaps there are even stronger existences in Xinjiang County? Wu Huang looked fearful. Grand Elder. At this moment, the Patriarch of the Spirit Stream Sect transmitted his voice, "Please come to the main hall quickly." It turned out that Wu Huang was the Grand Elder of the Spiritual Stream Sect. No wonder his cultivation was so strong. In the main hall, the Patriarch of the Spirit Stream Sect, who was in his 70s, sat at the head of the table. There was anger on his aged face. There were also many elders seated in the lower seats. However, there was still a slight gap between their strength and the upper echelons of Miaohua Palace. Patriarch. Elder Shui and Elder Zhuang died in the Azure Sun County. They must be severely punished. An elder said with a cold face. Another elder said coldly, "Although we don't know who did it, since he died in Azure Sun County, let the entire county be buried with him." The death of 2 martial kings infuriated the upper echelons of the Spirit Stream Sect. Just as they were filled with righteous indignation, the Grand Elder walked in. Everyone stood up and saluted him. Patriarch. The Grand Elder sat down and said solemnly, "I'm afraid there's an expert with unfathomable strength in Xinjiang County." Everyone was surprised. The Patriarch of the Spirit Stream Sect asked, "Why do you say that?" The Grand Elder hurriedly reported that he was attacked in the wilderness. The Patriarch and elders fell silent. Even a martial emperor would not be able to dodge this sudden attack. His strength must be terrifying. Could it be Wusheng? The Patriarch of the Spirit Stream Sect frowned. The Grand Elder shook his head and said, "It's hard to say." Just as the Patriarch of the Spirit Stream Sect was about to speak, a disciple walked in and said, "Patriarch, there's a letter from the county governor." Oh? He hurriedly took the letter and opened it. After reading it, he said in a deep voice, "The county governor wants to attack Azure Sun County. He wants the Spirit Stream Sect to send people with him." Without hearing the Grand Elder's words, everyone would definitely agree. Now that there was a suspected expert at Wusheng's level in Azure Sun County, everyone hesitated. Sigh. The Patriarch of the Spirit Stream Sect sighed and said, "Since the Spirit Stream Sect is betting on Xinjiang County, we naturally have to cooperate." He said, "Third Elder, Fourth Elder, bring a few hundred disciples with you." Yes. The Third Elder and Fourth Elder accepted the order and led the disciples down the mountain. As for the Grand Elder, he chose to continue cultivating in seclusion because he was afraid of the expert who ambushed him. From the looks of it, He Wudi had not only saved sect leader June but also successfully restrained an expert at Wu Huang's level. After the battle exemption token lost its effect, the people of Xinjiang County naturally remembered Tao Yuan's defeat and capture. Huayang County and Heyang County had been conquered, and Azure Sun County had lost a talented young general and an elite division. It was definitely difficult for them to accept. The county governor immediately ordered to mobilize 300,000 soldiers to attack Azure Sun County. Not only did he notify the Spirit Stream Sect, but he also notified the Duanshui Pavilion. They also sent 2 Martial King elders and a few hundred disciples. 2 days later, everyone gathered in a certain city in Heyang County. The 300,000 soldiers and many experts majestically charged toward Azure Sun County. Sect leader. In Iron Bone, Li Luoqiu received the news and said with a frown, Xinjiang County's army will arrive at Azure Sun City in 3 days. They're finally here. Jun Changshao hurriedly dispatched the Wolf Rider Hall and disciples to Iron Bone City as quickly as possible. As for Tao Yuan, who had recovered his memories, he locked himself in a room with a complicated gaze. I was captured. I became a disciple of Iron Bone. Who can tell me what's going on? Jun Changshao knew that Tao Yuan needed time to accept reality, so he did not disturb him. He left the sect's matters to Li Luoqiu and headed toward Azure Sun City. Sect leader Jun, on the city gate tower, Shi Jingxian said in surprise, "Your aura seems to be stronger than before." In the past month, Jun Changshao had been cultivating in seclusion. Relying on enough natural spirit stones and chi-gathering pills, he finally entered the second stage from the first stage. Before coming to Azure Sun City, he specially went to the training room to test his strength. His punch was 4 million jin. Every time a superior martial king broke through one stage, his strength would increase by 500,000 jin. This guy directly reached 1 million jin. It could be said that he was quite valiant. The system once said, the host is strong enough to fight an advanced peak martial king. It was understandable for a lower level to fight against someone of a higher level. As a martial king, he was able to fight against a martial king at the peak of the martial king realm. This was the sword martial king. This was the dual spirit core. Cultivation was much slower than normal martial cultivation, but as long as it increased, even if it was only by one stage, it would be even more explosive. Ah! Jun Changshao scratched his head and said, "Recently, I have a new understanding of martial arts. My strength has increased a little." "Only a little?" Shi Jingxian asked suspiciously. She, who could not see the light with her eyes, was very sensitive in her mind. "Palace Master Shi." Jun Changshao said, "I have received news that Xinjiang County has sent 300,000 soldiers. There are also experts from 2 sects accompanying them." He would not tell her about his breakthrough. After all, it had only been a few months since he became a dual martial king. If he advanced by another stage, it would definitely arouse unnecessary suspicion. Such a large force? Shi Jingxian pondered for a while and said, "Sect Master Jun, my Miaohua Palace can help your sect with the 2 sections. As for the 300,000 soldiers, there is nothing I can do." Jun Changshao said, "Palace Master Shi only needs to hold back the experts from the 2 sections. Leave the rest to my Iron Bone. Xinjiang County is a large county that is good at fighting." "Sect Master Jun, are you confident that you can fight against them?" Shi Jingxian asked curiously. Jun Changshao put his hands behind his back and looked at the battlefield outside. His eyes were cold as he said, "Not only am I confident, but I will also make those who invade my Azure Sun City pay the most painful price." His voice was cold and filled with killing intent. It could be seen that in the near future, there would be a world-shocking battle of slaughter. Chapter 483. A few days later. The famous general of southwest Yangzhou, Bairuehu, led the White Tiger Army and arrived at Xinjiang City. What did it mean to have 300,000 soldiers? Looking from the tower of Xinjiang City, it was like a wave that couldn't be retreated. These soldiers cultivated martial arts. When they released their cultivation, it was as if they could shake half of the sky. Although the people in the city didn't see the army, they trembled in fear when they felt the cold aura from afar. In front of this battle-hardened army, ordinary people were like weeds. Even Xie Guangquan, who was standing on the tower, couldn't help but swallow his saliva when he saw the soldiers. If sect leader Jun wasn't in charge of guarding the city, he wouldn't have the courage to face such a huge army. Shui Rengui was calm. As a 5-star general, he had seen millions of soldiers, let alone 300,000. Tisk, tisk. Su Xiaoma sat on the city wall and grinned. It looks scary. There are so many soldiers. If we go in and kick them, we can definitely kill many of them. Li Fei's eyes flashed with fighting spirit. He wanted to rush into the army and use his golden right leg to kill to his heart's content. Crack! Tian Qi clenched his fist and said, I can't wait. For the past 3 months, they had been cultivating with spirit stones and energy-gathering pills. They had improved a lot and wanted to test their strength on the soldiers of Xinjiang County. Shui Rengui wasn't afraid because he had seen the world. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei weren't afraid because they had been trained to be brave. Even if they were in a desperate situation, they wouldn't change their expressions. This was the Iron Bone Sect's disciples. This was the Iron Bone Sect. Those standing on the tower weren't just the inner disciples. There were also outer disciples, such as Song Xianzhou, Lin Jiangheng, Li Tiantian, Cui Bujian, Sima Zhongda, and others. Other than a small group of disciples who were in charge of daily affairs, everyone who could come was here. He Wudi was here too. He was now a grade 6 martial master. He had lost his memories 3 times and had even wasted 3 times of his cultivation. To be able to reach such a level in just over a month, as expected of the final disciple of Unyielding Sect. As for our sect leader June, he was still lying on the city gate tower with a charming smile on his face. I didn't expect Xinjiang County to send so many people. Looking at the large army outside, Zhangsun Fanghua frowned. In her opinion, the reason why Xinjiang County sent such a large army over was to take over Azure Sun County and expand their territory. Leng Xingyue said indifferently, even if we can hold back 2 fourth-rate sects, Iron Bone will definitely not be able to defend Azure Sun City. Shi Jingxian smiled and said, Elder Leng, don't jump to conclusions. Although the Iron Bone sect couldn't be compared to the Xinjiang County, she still trusted Sect Master June more. Outside the city, Bai Ruihu, who was dressed in battle armor, rode a tall horse and stood in the middle of the army. His eyes were sharp. He was the highest commander of the White Tiger Legion and one of the 10 great generals of southwest Yangzhou. He definitely had a strong aura of a veteran. A general of the same rank as Tao Yuan looked at the row of Iron Bone disciples on the city gate tower and sneered, defending the city with so few people, are you looking down on our White Tiger Legion? General Tao is the same. The young general beside him said indifferently, he actually lost to such a low-grade city and even became a captive. In my opinion. Someone said, General Tao has probably surrendered. Tao Yuan was the youngest general in the White Tiger Legion and was very talented in military affairs. Naturally, many people didn't like him. Now that he was a captive and there was no news of him, they would definitely hit him while he was down. Even Bai Ruihu, who was furious on the surface when he heard that Tao Yuan lost the battle and was captured, was actually relieved. Recently, the county governor admired this person very much. This made him very worried that Tao Yuan would replace him in the future. Now that Tao Yuan lost the battle and became a captive, it would be difficult for the county governor to put him in an important position. As expected. Just as Shui Rengui said, Bai Ruihu was a narrow-minded person. Tao Yuan was a rising star in the military world. Even if he didn't lose to Jun Changshao, he would definitely be obstructed by Bai Ruihu in the future. General Bai. The third elder of the Spirit Stream sect walked over and said with a serious expression, the one standing in front of the city gate tower is the palace master of Miaohua Palace. Bai Ruihu said in surprise, a fourth-rate sect in Tianjin County? Why is she in Qingyang City? The third elder said, maybe she's a helper from Qingyang County. Bai Ruihu sneered and said, could it be that Miaohua Palace wants to get involved in a secular war? What he said. As if the Spirit Stream sect and Duanshui Pavilion weren't involved in a secular war. The third elder said solemnly, Miaohua Palace's strength is not to be underestimated, especially that young new palace master. She's even called an extraordinary woman. Although the Spirit Stream sect and Miaohua Palace were of the same level, their overall strength was much weaker. Not to mention, standing next to Shi Jingxian were two peak martial kings. If the martial kings sent by the Spirit Stream Sect and Duanshui Pavilion dared to clamor in front of the city gate, they could teach them a lesson in a matter of minutes. This time, the Truyang County had sent experts from the two sects to intimidate them with their strength. In the end, the other side had an even stronger existence, so it was meaningless. Bai Ruihu didn't care. These martial kings were just icing on the cake. To truly take down Qingyang City and the entire Qingyang County, he still had to rely on his own army. "Thank you, Governor." He channeled his energy into his dantian and shouted, "For the sake of the people in the city, you should give up resisting." Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, a stream of light shot toward him. The fourth elder of the Spirit Stream Sect flew up and formed a defensive wall in front of him, blocking the bullet. What kind of hidden weapon was that? The fourth elder landed and stabilized his body. His eyes were filled with surprise. If he hadn't fully activated his spiritual senses, he wouldn't have been able to accurately capture the stream of light with his naked eye, let alone form a defensive wall to block it. On the sentry post, Xiao Ziji put down his AWM sniper rifle and shook his head helplessly. With a martial king around, it would be difficult for him to hurt the enemy. Jun Changshao stood up from the roof and said with a smile, "Listen up, Green Sun City is now under the protection of my Iron Bone faction." Iron Bone? Bai Ruihu and the other generals sneered. The fourth elder of the Gue Yuan sect said in a deep voice, "A mere Iron Bone dares to get involved in a secular war. What a joke." Jun Changshao flew out with the cloud-treading steps and landed in front of the army of 300,000. He pointed at the martial king and said, "Old man, you seem to be looking down on Iron Bone. Come, let's fight." One person declaring war in front of so many people. How arrogant was that? The fourth elder of the Gue Yuan sect said in disdain, "Me? Are you the sect master of Iron Bone, Jun Changshao?" Just as he finished speaking, his expression changed. That was because the young man was emitting a special aura, which turned into a powerful pressure and pressed down on him. The fourth elder wanted to dodge, but under the pressure of Ling Jian's sword, not only did his movements slow down, he was also gradually frozen in place. In the end, he couldn't move at all. "Old man." Jun Changshao raised his hand and a red light gathered at his fingertips. He said coldly, "This is the result of looking down on Iron Bone." Whoosh! The 7 mysterious sunglow break was used and shot out in a beam of light. No, the fourth elder of the Ling Yuan sect was shocked. "Puchi!" But just as he shouted a word, his chest was mercilessly pierced through by the red beam of light. His thoughts and sea of consciousness were cut off and his eyes dimmed. Zhangsun Fanghua and Ling Xingyue's eyes were filled with disbelief. Bai Ruihu and the other experts from the two sects also widened their eyes. Rank 2 martial king. He was insta-killed by him just like that. Chapter 484. The noisy fourth elder of the Spirit Stream Sect was killed by Jun Changshao's 7 profound sunglow break. Bai Ruihu and the others widened their eyes. Zhangsun Fanghua and Ling Xingyue, who were standing on the city gate tower, were stunned. That guy killed a rank 2 martial king too easily. There was nothing they could do. Under the suppression of the sword aura, the fourth elder of the Spirit Stream Sect couldn't dodge or resist. He could only stand there and wait for death. When Jun Changshao first used the sword aura in the Blue Mountain Sect, he could only barely restrain a martial king. Now that his cultivation had improved and his understanding of the way of the sword had deepened, when facing a low-level martial king, his chi domain was comparable to Wu Huang's. Plop! The fourth elder of the Spirit Stream Sect fell to the ground. Elder Wang. The third elder of the Spirit Stream Sect glared at Jun Changshao with a strong killing intent in his eyes. "You have a problem with that?" Jun Changshao said, "Come, let's fight." Arrogant. Arrogant. The third elder of the Spirit Stream Sect said in a deep voice, "Kid, you killed people of the Spirit Stream Sect. We won't rest until you die." Although he was angry, he was more rational. To be able to kill the fourth elder, this kid was very strong. If he blindly accepted the challenge, it would be dangerous. Therefore, he could only threaten him. Jun Changshao shrugged and said indifferently, "It's not like I haven't killed them before." "Do you think I'm afraid?" "It's not like I haven't killed them before." The third elder of the Spirit Stream sect was stunned. Then, he remembered something and said in surprise, "Elder Shui and Elder Zhuang were killed by you?" Jun Changshao was surprised. "You don't know?" In his opinion, his identity should have been exposed since he was chased by Wu Huang of the Spirit Stream sect. That was why he flew out and killed the fourth elder. Anyway, there was a grudge between them. Since he had already killed two, it didn't matter if he killed one more. In fact, the Spirit Stream sect didn't know who the murderer was. Although the Grand Elder had seen him, he didn't know his true identity. The two martial kings of the Duanshui Pavilion were also angry and murderous. An elder and many disciples of their sect went to the Blue Mountain sect with the Spirit Stream sect and never returned. They must have been killed by him. The three martial kings glared at him angrily. Jun Chang laughed and said, "You're so angry. How about this?" He paused, and said, "Don't say that I'm bullying you. The three of you can come at me together." One person challenging three martial kings. How arrogant! Arrogant! The anger in the eyes of the elders of the two sects burned even brighter. As the king of martial Dao, he would definitely find it hard to accept being looked down upon by a junior. "Elder Zhang, Elder Zhao." The third elder of the Spirit Stream sect said in a low voice, "Since Sect Master Jun has said so, it would be rude of us to not accompany you." "Not bad." Duanshui Pavilion's elder Zhang said, "If Sect Head Jun insists on fighting 1 against 3, we must accompany you to the end." Jun Changshao was able to instantly kill a rank 2 martial king. None of them had the confidence to fight him one-on-one. However, if they were to fight him together, they would have a very high chance of winning. Shwa! 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 The three of them flew out and landed in front of the formation. Then, they unleashed their martial king cultivation. Whoosh! Whoosh! A thick and heavy aura instantly filled the battlefield, causing Xie Guanquan, who was on the city gate tower, to tremble. Zhangsun Fanghua said coldly, 1 against 3 martial kings. That brat is truly arrogant. Leng Xingyue said, although his strength is not bad, he's too young and impetuous. Shi Jingxian smiled and said, I feel that Sect Master Jun dares to fight 1 against 3. He's a man of iron and unyielding character. Zhangsun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue were silent. It seemed that the palace master was truly infatuated with that guy. No matter what he did, she believed it to be right. Facing the 3 martial kings who unleashed their cultivation, Jun Changshao asked inwardly with a calm expression, what's the strength of these 3 people? The system said, 1 rank 5 martial king and 2 rank 3 martial kings. If that's the case, they're equivalent to rank 11 martial kings, Jun Changshao thought to himself. System, adding up the other party's cultivation level, this was too strange. Sect Master Jun, the Spirit Stream Sect's 3rd elder said coldly, can we begin? With so many people watching and 3 against 1, he had to pay attention to his demeanor to prevent others from gossiping behind his back. Let's begin. Jun Changshao said with his hands behind his back, I'll let you guys make the first move. This was truly arrogant. Zhangsun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue, who were already unhappy with him, rolled their eyes. They secretly thought that such an arrogant junior would fall sooner or later. There was no need for sooner or later. Now was the time. If 3 martial kings joined forces, they would definitely be able to beat him to a pulp. The Spirit Stream Sect's 3rd elder's eyes flickered with anger. He exchanged glances with the 2 Duanshui Pavilion's 3rd elder and then used their respective martial skills. Immediately, multicolored spiritual energy gathered. Whoosh, the spiritual energy surged and the wind howled. 3 martial kings working together could be said to be extremely powerful. The White Tiger Corps soldiers standing at the front line had fear in their eyes. Then, they unconsciously retreated more than 10 steps. They were worried that they would be affected by the aftershocks and die an unnatural death. Since ancient times, there had been many little ghosts who had suffered because of a fight between immortals. Go! The third elder of the spirit stream sect shouted. At the same time, he rushed over using his movement technique. His fists were infused with spiritual energy and instantly blasted out dozens of punches in the air. Hidden Tyrant Fist. Supreme Grade Fist Technique. Whoosh whoosh. The densely packed fist shadows formed a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas as they pressed forward. As soon as the Spirit Stream Sect's third elder made his move, the two Duanshui Pavilion's third elder also quickly stepped forward. Then, they gathered spiritual energy in two directions and blasted it. Whoosh! Whoosh! Two vigorous energies turned into streams of light like saber energy. This was Duanshui Pavilion's unique martial skill, Water Drawing Saber. Although its level was not as high as the Hidden Tyrant Fist, it was still a rather rare spiritual energy martial skill. Boom! 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 The densely packed fist imprints first blasted towards Jun Changshao. Under the energy explosion, a cloud of mist immediately rose up. Following that, the two saber-drawing water-breaking swords swept up a cloud of dust that covered the sky. Hiss! Many soldiers sucked in a breath of cold air. If they were to resist this kind of power, they would definitely be blasted into meat paste. Zhangsun Fanghua and Ling Xingyue both shook their heads. 3 different martial techniques came from 3 different directions, but that guy actually stood in the same place without moving. Did he think that he could use the spiritual energy wall to resist it? A 5th-grade martial king and 2 3rd-grade martial kings. The power they erupted with was at least 6 to 7 million jin. Even a peak martial king might not be able to resist it. Gradually, the dust dissipated. Jun Changxiao's figure gradually appeared. Still standing there. Zhangsun Fanghua and Ling Xingyue looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. Even if the spiritual energy wall could resist the bombardment of 3 martial kings, it should at least take a few steps back, right? What did he mean by standing there? Whoosh! A gust of wind blew away the thin mist, and they could clearly see that Jun Changshao was not only standing in the same place, but he was also wearing a scarlet armor. He had an imposing appearance, and was extraordinarily mighty. This, Zhangsun Fanghua and Ling Xingyue were stunned. They looked at the armor on Jun Changxiao's body and couldn't be sure for a moment. Was it an equipment or a treasure? Chapter 485. The combined attack of 3 martial kings was very powerful. However, Jun Changxiao's spirit armor had an extremely high defense, so it was able to withstand all of the attacks. Because of his mood, he even turned into a scarlet-red color. It was simply too bright. The 3 martial kings from the 2 sects frowned. They knew that this child was strong and used his trump card right from the start. However, not only did it not injure him, it did not even push him back. This was very damaging to their pride. Swoosh! Jun Changxiao raised his hand and smiled. It's my turn to make a move. Whoosh! The special energy in the world was extracted and condensed into a scarlet ball of light in his palm. The armor was scarlet red. The attribute was also scarlet red. At that moment, sect leader Jun was even more dazzling than the sun in the sky. The 3 martial kings' expressions changed greatly. Just now, Elder Wang's chest was directly penetrated by this energy. He's using the 7 profound sunglow break again. He Wudi, who was on the city wall, thought. This move consumes a lot of spiritual energy. Isn't he afraid of exhausting himself? No. Dual core drive, sufficient energy. Jun Changxiao's palm was aimed at Duanshui Pavilion's Elder Sunday. At that moment, beads of sweat had already seeped out of his forehead. A rank 2 martial king was instantly killed by this move. Although he was a rank 3 martial king, he would definitely not be able to withstand it. Paw! Elder Zhang strode over and placed his hands on Elder Sun's back. He shouted, "You and I will form a formation together." Okay. Elder Sun quickly formed a seal. Whoosh whoosh. The surging spiritual energy and Elder Zhang's spiritual energy converged together and instantly formed a solid defensive barrier in front of them. Double seal formation. Zhang Sun Fanghua said. Leng Xingyue said, "This seems to be a mid-rank defensive martial skill." Yes. Zhang Sun Fanghua said, "That guy might not be able to move it." Break. At that moment, Jun Changshao disdainfully said. Whoosh! A scarlet beam of light suddenly shot out from his palm and hit the defensive barrier at an extremely fast speed. Bang! In an instant, the defensive formation created by the two rank 3 martial kings was instantly shattered like paper. Poochie! Poochie! The remaining power of the crimson light beam did not diminish, and it directly passed through Elder Sun's left shoulder. Elder Zhang, who was behind him, could not avoid it, and his left shoulder was also pierced through. Breaking the barrier would kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The might of this 7 profound sunglow break was truly astonishing. When Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue saw this, their eyes widened again. The two of them had come to assist Iron Bone in defending Green Sun City, but in the end, not only had they become a shocking audience, but they had also been slapped in the face time and time again. They were truly pitiful. Hoo-hoo! Right at this moment, a heavy pressure suddenly appeared in the sky. Jun Changshao raised his head and looked. Clusters of spiritual energy were gathering, as if dark clouds were pressing down on the border. The third elder of the spirit stream sect, who was standing in the distance, raised his hands to the sky. Spiritual energy surged out of his body and surged into the air. After a short period of accumulation, he roared, "Mahayana heaven-destroying palm." Whoosh! A giant hand emerged from the converging spiritual energy and pressed down from above with rolling airwaves. This aura made everyone suck in a cold breath. It was no exaggeration to say that when the palm pressed down, the sky of Green Sun City became dim. Jun Changshao said indifferently, "Light of a firefly." Ta! He took a step forward and clenched his fists. When the palm was about to press down, he suddenly blasted toward the sky. Bang! 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 After a series of violent explosions, the palm pressing down was directly broken by the overbearing force. Puff! The third elder of the spirit stream sect spat out a mouthful of blood, and his eyes were filled with horror. The Mahayana heaven-destroying palm was his strongest trump card. He had begun to accumulate power when the opponent attacked Duanshui Pavilion's martial king. In the end, it was broken just like that. Shwa! Jun Changshao appeared in front of him with cloud-treading steps and said coldly, "Don't struggle." Whoosh! Whoosh! Once again, the mountain-collapsing earth-shattering fist spread out and immediately launched a storm-like bombardment. The whole process took place in a flash. Only Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue could keep up with Jun Changshao's movements and the speed of his fists. Bang! 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 Thump! 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 Facing the violent bombardment, the third elder of the spirit stream sect was beaten back repeatedly. His expression was constantly changing, and in the end, it was fixed on extreme pain. When sect leader Jun retracted his fist, he had already retreated dozens of steps. When he stabilized his body, he fell to the ground while vomiting blood. The corners of Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue's mouths twitched. Out of the 3 martial kings, 2 were injured and 1 was brutally beaten. This guy's strength was too strong. If the 2 knew that sect leader Jun had not used his full strength, they would be even more shocked. It could be said that, with his current strength, not to mention a 5th-grade martial king, he could even defeat a 7th or 8th-grade martial king. Heavens! City Lord Xia was shocked. Sect leader Jun is simply too terrifying. The Iron Bone disciples raised their heads and puffed out their chests. Obviously, they were proud of the strength displayed by their sect leader. Boring. Jun Changshao looked at the stunned Bai Ruihu in the distance and said, "Let's quickly give the order to attack the city." With a wave of his long sleeve, he flew to the city tower. The three martial kings from the spiritual stream Sect and Duanshui Pavilion endured their injuries and retreated in a sorry state. Jun Changshao did not intend to take their lives. Otherwise, they would have already become corpses. Sect leader Jun Bairuehu said in a deep voice, "Is the Iron Bone really going to participate in the war and defend Qingyang City to the death?" Although he was shocked by Jun Changxiao's strength, according to the rules, martial kings were not allowed to participate in worldly wars. Why? Because the strength of a martial king was too terrifying. They could destroy tens of thousands of soldiers with a wave of their hand. Jun Changshao, who had just landed in front of the city tower, said, "The Iron Bone is here. Qingyang City is here." His voice echoed in the air. The millions of people hiding in the city heard his words and their trembling hearts were immediately comforted. Sect leader Jun Xie Guanquan, who was standing at the side, was so moved that he almost cried. He cupped his hands and said, "Qingyang City will remember this kindness in our hearts." Humph, Bairuehu sneered. "How can a mere sect compete with the mighty army of my Xinjiang County?" Shwa! The battle flag was waved. Thousands of soldiers pushed the heavy siege vehicles out. Clearly, the siege was about to begin. "Hall Master Shua," Jun Changshao said, "I'll leave this battle to you." "Yes." Shui Rengui stepped forward and waved the war flag in his hand. The city gates immediately opened and the members of the Wolf Rider Hall rode out on their hurricane wolves. Wolf Riders? Bai Ruihu's eyes were filled with surprise. "That's it?" A general laughed disdainfully. Xinjiang County had 300,000 soldiers, but Iron Bone had sent out 1,000 wolf cavalry soldiers to meet the enemy head-on. The disparity was simply too great. The determination to break through enemy lines, only death awaits. Zhong Yi brandished his overlord's spear and roared, "Kill, kill, kill!" The hurricane wolves carried the members of the Wolf Rider Hall on their backs and formed a long snake formation as they charged forward. Looking down from above, the Xinjiang County's army was like a boundless ocean, and the wolf cavalry was like a lone boat. However, even though there were only a few of them, the members of the Wolf Rider Hall had a cold gaze as they emitted an unyielding aura. A mantis trying to stop a chariot, overestimating your capabilities. Bai Ruihu snorted and waved the war flag in his hand. Ta ta ta! 50,000 Iron Bone cavalry soldiers stood at the front line and gradually formed a formation. Facing 1,000 wolf cavalry soldiers with this number, General Bai was also very cautious. "Kill!" The cavalry general roared. "Ta! Ta! Ta!" The 50,000 Iron Bone cavalry soldiers immediately moved. Their horses madly galloped, causing the earth to tremble violently and rolling up a cloud of dust that covered the sky. Shwa! Xiao Ziji, who was standing on the sentry tower, raised his Type 88 sniper rifle. One of his eyes was placed on the 8x scope as he decisively pulled the trigger. Pang! 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 The 20 bullets were all used up as they flew past the members of the Wolf Rider Hall and accurately hit each and every one of them. Kill! At the same time, Zhong Yi led his members and charged forward. A battle of cavalry with fewer numbers had officially begun. Chapter 486. Over the past 3 months, the Wolf Rider Hall still had 1,000 members, but their strength had increased significantly. They were all peak martial masters. Sect leader Jun had also spent a lot of money. He had taken out all the natural spirit stones from the mines to help them improve their cultivation. With the help of spirit stones, they could increase their cultivation by 2 levels in Wuzong in a few days. The members of the Wolf Rider Hall were only martial masters. With all kinds of resources, It was easy for them to break through. The cavalry that Tao Yuan had carefully trained had been suppressed before. Now that the overall strength of the Wolf Rider Hall had increased, it was naturally easier for them to fight the 50,000 cavalry of the White Tiger Legion. This was not. Zhong Yi led the way. He was like an invincible sword. Wherever he went, he would kill. He did not give the enemy any chance to survive. Once again, the cavalry that had wanted to surround the Wolf Riders lost 3,000 to 4,000 men. During this time, they had tried to fight back. However, the members of the Wolf Rider Hall were all covered in armor. They were armed to the teeth. They were like a moving iron wall. Kill! Zhong Yi shouted again. Awo! Awo! The hurricane wolves showed their full speed. On the battlefield of Green Sun City, they lined up in the shape of a person, and then in the shape of a line. They were very smug. Pucci, a cavalry soldier, was pierced through the chest by the Overlord spear. He was then thrown off his horse. As soon as he landed on the ground, the hurricane wolves behind him stepped on him. Kill! Kill! The members of the Wolf Rider Hall shouted angrily. They waved the Overlord spear in their hands and killed the soldiers one by one. At this moment, life was worthless on the battlefield. After a few rounds, the formation of the tens of thousands of cavalry soldiers was completely disrupted by the Wolf Riders. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear. These iron-boned sect disciples riding hurricane wolves and wearing armor were simply demons that came out from hell. What was more tragic was that not only did they have to face the Wolf Rider Hall, but they also had to face Xiao Ziji, who was standing on the sentry tower. Because every time this guy fired a shot, he would take away a life. Of course. Li Tiantian, who was standing on another sentry tower, was also shooting frequently. Although his skills were still bad, at least he would not hurt his own people. Bai Ruihu's face was very ugly. The Wolf Riders were too strong. Their own cavalry soldiers were being suppressed to the point that they could not fight back. Shwa! The battle flag was waved. The remaining 50,000 infantrymen charged forward. The best way to deal with this kind of wolf cavalry was to rely on numbers to suppress them, and then exhaust them until they were completely exhausted. Disciples, heed my command. Jun Changshao, who was standing on top of the city gate tower, shouted, "Go out and meet the enemy." Yes. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei used cloud-treading steps and jumped down from the city gate tower, impatiently rushing towards the battlefield. The two of them had long wanted to make a move. Unfortunately, the sect leader did not give any orders. They could only watch as Zhong Yi led his men to slaughter everyone below. Now that he was allowed to make a move, he was like a rabid dog that had escaped from its leash. Shwa! Shwa! Long Xiang, Yang Yuhua, Sima Zhongde, Cui Bujian, and the others also rushed in. All of a sudden, nearly 2,000 iron-bone disciples charged into the battlefield. When they burst forth with their cultivations, Zhang Sun Fanghua exclaimed in disbelief, "They are all peak martial masters." Lin Xingyue widened her eyes and said, "Is this a seventh-rate sect?" "Sorry." Jun Changshao, who was standing next to her, said seriously, "My iron bone is now a sixth-rate sect, not a seventh-rate sect." Lin Xingyue's mouth twitched. Even a sixth-rate sect could not have more than 2,000 peak martial masters. Moreover, the few disciples who charged into the enemy group and slaughtered crazily were all 6th grade or 7th grade Wuzong. If she knew how many natural spiritual stones Iron Bone had absorbed in the past 90 days, she would definitely understand why it had such a powerful realm. Pucci! Pucci! Su Xiaoma and Li Fei relied on their speed and rushed into the enemy first. The cold-edged sword in their hands flashed, and the soldiers fell to the ground one by one. They were really mad dogs. They would bite whoever they saw, showing no mercy. Yang Yuhua, who was the second meat shield, rushed in with her iron shield. She was like a bulldozer, directly dragging dozens of soldiers with her. Long Xiang rushed in with the Overlord spear in his hand. A cold light flashed first, and then the spear shot out like a dragon, mercilessly killing the surrounding soldiers. Even the seemingly insignificant disciples of Iron Bone, such as Sima Zhongda and Cui Bujian, showed their terrifying killing power when they charged into the enemy group. The 50,000 infantrymen who were about to encircle the wolf cavalry were immediately stopped by the 2,000 Iron Bone disciples. Bang! Bang! The light of my slash flashed, and the landslide fist whistled. All kinds of gorgeous energy exploded at the same time, and the scene was spectacular. In front of the fierce Iron Bone disciples, the White Tiger soldiers were like weeds being harvested row by row. Bairuehu's expression changed again and again, becoming more and more ugly. In the end, he waved the war flag again, and another 50,000 infantrymen rushed over. You're strong. I'll rely on the human wave tactic to completely crush them. Sect leader Shui Rengui frowned and said, this is not good. After all, Iron Bone was weak alone, and it was difficult for them to fight against hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Jun Changshao said, tell them to retreat. Swoosh! The war flag was waved. Zhong Yi received the order and immediately shouted, retreat. Swoosh! Swoosh! The members of the Wolf Cavalry Hall did not linger and rode the Hurricane Wolves back to the city. Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others also returned to Qingyang City after killing many soldiers. Very soon, only the White Tiger soldiers were left on the battlefield. From the corpses on the ground, at least 20,000 had died in a short period of time. On the side of Iron Bone, due to their powerful strength and excellent equipment, none of their disciples died. Of course, someone was injured. After all, after rushing into the crowd, they would be bombarded by dozens of people if they were not careful. After a long time, they would definitely not be able to hold on. Damn it! Yang Yuhua, who had returned to the city, grimaced and said, it really hurts. The clothes on his back were all torn, revealing the soft silk armor that was left behind by various weapons and martial arts attacks. Phew! Sima Zhongda gasped for breath and said, fortunately, Sect Master told us to retreat in time. Otherwise, we would have been surrounded. Even if we were not killed, we would have been exhausted to death. Zhangsun Fanghua said indifferently, Sect Master Jun, although your disciples are strong, there is no hope for them to defend Qingyang City. This was not looking down on Iron Bone, but the truth. Thousands of disciples, even if they were peak martial masters, had a limit. How could they fight against an army of 300,000? Xie Guangquan was also a little worried. The disciples of Iron Bone were already very tired after charging for a round. If Sect Master Jun did not have a backup plan, how could they fight the enemy next? Don't worry, don't worry. Jun Changshao said confidently, the show has just begun. Xiao Ziji jumped out of the sentry tower, then used the cloud-treading steps to walk to the back. After a few ups and downs, he stopped on a hillside outside the city and tore off the weeds, revealing the field artillery that had been prepared long ago. Caw caw caw. He controlled the steering wheel, and the muzzle of the cannon turned toward the East City Gate. He said telepathically, Sect Master, the calibration is complete. Jun Changshao did not say anything, but his eyes were fixed outside the city. Ta ta ta. The 100,000 soldiers of the White Tiger Army marched forward, and the siege chariots in front opened the way. Facing such a formation, it was really difficult to fight head-on without enough troops. Swoosh! A general raised the war flag and shouted, attack! Fire! At this moment, Jun Changshao transmitted his voice. Xiao Ziji, who was standing in front of the field artillery, pressed the button directly. The muzzle of the cannon suddenly spewed out flames, and thick smoke rose. Boom! The sound of the explosion was transmitted. The walls of Green Sun City trembled, and the buildings in the city creaked from the tremors. Zhangsun Fanghua and Ling Xingyu's expressions changed. At the same time, an object dragging a stream of light appeared in their field of vision, then drew a beautiful arc and landed in the midst of the Xinjiang County army that was preparing to attack the city. Boom! The sound of the explosion came from the battlefield, and an extremely strong shock wave was formed. Whoosh whoosh, strong winds blew, and thick fog appeared. The elders and disciples of Miaohua Palace all widened their eyes, and some people's ears even buzzed. Bai Ruihu was even more miserable. Because he was very close to the explosion, he was directly blown off his horse by the shock wave and fell to the ground in a sorry state. His eyes were filled with fear. What is this? It was a cannon. Bang! A cannon.